Rajit?
Yes, sir.
All are
Yes,
ready
sir.
now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The resource persons will be joining the main session, sir. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Master of Ceremony, all the dignitaries are here. We may proceed. 1 second, I'm so sorry. I think we await the presence of our Honorable Principal. Once Sir's here, we may proceed.
Okay. Malaika Swami is back.
Yes.
Malavika.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Sir,
Good afternoon.
Shall we start, sir?
Yes.
Yes. Please proceed, Malavika.
Okay, sir. Thank you. A very good evening and a warm namaste to all present here. I, Malavika Bismi from University Law College, consider it my privilege to be the Master of Ceremonies for Technical Session 4. This is day 2 of the International Virtual Workshop on Protection of Human Rights during Pandemic. And this is the last technical session of our event. This session will be followed by the Valedictory Ceremony. On this occasion, I would like to quote John F. Kennedy. The rights of every man are diminished even when the right of one man is threatened. We are in the middle of a humanitarian crisis, which is soon turning to be a human rights crisis. It is very crucial for us to understand the importance of human rights and hence this workshop. Without any further ado, I now invite Dr. L. Chandrakanti, Senior Assistant Professor, University Law College, Bangalore University, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Malavika. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 4th session of second day International Virtual Workshop on Protection of Human Rights during Pandemic. I feel privileged to invite and welcome to chair the session Professor Dr. David Ambrose, former head Department of Legal Studies, University of Madras, Chennai. Welcome you, sir. I welcome today's speakers. First, I welcome Professor C.S. Patil, Director and Dean Faculty of Law, KSLU, Hubli. I extend my welcome to Professor Dr. Bismi Gopalakrishnan, Dean, Director, School of Indian Legal Thought, MG University, Kottayam. I welcome Professor Dr. M. Vishvanath, Dean, Faculty of Law, Karnataka University, Dharwad. All speakers are Dean. Today's speakers are Deans. I also extend warm welcome to our respected Principal, ULC, and Program Director, Professor Dr. Suresh V. Nadagaudar. I also extend my welcome to Chairman, Dean, Faculty of Law, Department of Studies in Law, Professor Dr. N. Dashrath. I also welcome our beloved former Principal, Professor Dr. V. Sudesh, University Law College, Bangalore University. And I also thank Satish Gowda, and I also welcome Program Coordinator, Dr. N. Satish Gowda. And I welcome my colleague, Dr. Jyoti Vishwanath, and all other teaching faculty, librarian Shivkumari Madam, and university staff. And finally, I welcome virtual audience for this 4th session of the second day International Virtual Program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With the permission of the panel, can we begin the technical session?
Okay.
Yes. Audio is clear. Fine.
Hello, Ambrose,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Namaste.
This session is chaired by Professor Dr. David Ambrose. I consider it my privilege to introduce the chairperson for this session. Professor Dr. David Ambrose has served as the head of the Department of Legal Studies, University of Madras. He was also the Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Madras, and Coordinator, MHRD IPR Chair, and he has served as PG Faculty of Law for about 22 years. Sir has guided more than 30 PhD scholars and has judged several prestigious moot court competitions like Philip C. Jessup. He has participated and presented papers in several national and international seminars and has also published more than 50 research articles in various journals. He is the recipient of several laurels, including the L.C. Miller Medal 1988, the Dr. A.L. Mudaliar Prize 1988, doctoral scholarship at the Hague Academy of International Law. We are very happy to have you with us today, sir. Over to you.
Good evening to all. It is a pleasure to be part of this today international workshop on human rights during pandemic. I thank the organizers for the chance to have this session, and I also thank my panelists and welcome my panelists, co-panelists, Professor Dr. C.S. Patil, Professor Dr. Bismi Gopalakrishnan, and Professor Dr. Vishvanath, who will be my co-panelists, and they'll be expressing their views on this with reference to this, the protection of human rights during pandemic. I also thank our ULC conducting this international workshop, a timely workshop, and I think I have given 15 to 20 minutes. Without further ado, I will make some, as a chairman, I make some remarks. When we come to protection of human rights, normally we say human rights, the birth is very painful and the growth is the struggled one. This is what normally we say, because after the Second World War, after the devastating effect of the Second World War, the international community witnessed the development or growth of jurisprudence, of human rights jurisprudence. That is, it is a painful birth. When Jesus Christ was born also, because he was thought to be the king of Jews, the then ruler wanted to kill all the male children below the age of 2 years. So like that, when the human rights jurisprudence developed in Boston, so many people, nearly more than 7 lakhs people died or suffered, and they were subjected to inhuman, degrading treatment. So that is why we say the birth of human rights is very painful. So, and its struggle, the growth also was a struggled one. It has to face several challenges during its development. Even today in the 21st century, the human rights face challenges. So the main problem is with reference to its realization. So now we simply say rhetoric to realization of human rights. Though we understand that the standards of human rights standards are made or developed at the international level, and they have to be implemented at the domestic level without adequate or proper supervision. So this is the problem we are facing with reference to realize when we come to protection of human rights, or protection of human rights at the domestic level. So the norm setting is done at the international level. The protection has to be taken care of at the domestic level without proper international supervision or whatever it is. Nevertheless, if you analyze the course of human rights development of human rights, you face several hurdles or obstacles, and that is why we say it was a struggled growth. The first one is with reference to many people thought it is a natural right. So conversion of this natural right into a positive right, recognizing as a positive right, this was the first challenge faced by the human race. So normally we say human rights are natural rights. It's born with a man and dies with a man. It exists along whenever a man is born. It is along with him. It is born also. It dies with him. So this natural right has been converted into a positive right. So from natural Second World War, our growth of jurisprudence and birth. When Jesus Christ was born also, the ruler wanted to kill all the human rights. When Jesus Christ was the then ruler, so many people treatment. So that we have UDHR, so it was recognized as an international instrument, and it has sunk to the level of customary international law. The next thing is with reference to that approach. Before that, the internationalization of human rights was recognized, but internationalization of the main problem is with realization of human rights. They are developed at the international level, and the human rights was discussed at the international level. But nevertheless, that is supervision of it was always evading. This is another problem we face. So the internationalization versus universalization, we had the first one was the conversion of this natural right into positive standards, struggle to follow the sectoral approach. Whenever there is a consensus, whenever there is a consensus, so immediately we this is the problem we have faced. But universalization of convention and so many conventions we have, whenever there's consensus, immediately we have an instrument. The third important thing is with the accepted internationalization, we can't autonomous approach. So the internationalization was a consensus. Whenever there is a rights of child convention, so many countries there is consensus. From economic, from the civil and political rights, we also had economic. And so 1948, 1966, international covenants, the covenant on international social and cultural rights. So this dichotomous approach again put a break to the development of or realization of human rights. Then we had the generation of rights. First generation, second generation, third generation human rights. Now we are also talking about fourth generation of human rights, comprising of genetic rights or rights which are for the common mankind or which is common concern of mankind, etc., etc. We are dealing with it. So first generation human rights talked about right, it was dealing with right-based regime. Second generation human rights talked about duty-based regime. Third generation human rights talked about cooperation at all levels, and fourth generation human rights we have been dealing with as a different common responsibilities are imposed on all states as well as individuals. So now we are also facing in the pandemic also similarly. During pandemic, lockdown, pandemic, COVID, or during emergency, during wartime, the realization of human rights has always been found difficult. So we have to learn from, we have to face the challenges. And the problem, as I told you earlier, is with reference to realization or implementation or enforcement of human rights. So now consolidation of human rights, there are umpteen number of international human rights. There are corpus, there is the realization of human rights, this rich corpus of jurisprudence recognizing the various kinds of human rights. So we have to learn from how to realize them, how to put them into a reality. So that is why from rhetoric to realization is a major issue before us. So from the Tamil Nadu point of view, so what the pandemic has taught us, I would like to talk on this. What this pandemic, lockdown, corpus, pandemic, COVID, or what it is has taught us, or the implementation, realization, or the enforcement of human rights from Tamil Nadu points of view. And from this, I love to conclude the future of human rights or implementation of human rights will have to be necessary. The role of state, how to individuals. The state has to play a larger role. So we control. So from the Tamil Nadu talk on this, what is implementation, realization, or rhetoric to Tamil Nadu point of view. So lockdown, pandemic, COVID, or whatever. Whenever we say human rights violence, future of human rights, or implement of human rights, we talk about custodial violence, custodial rape, of the individuals, or the entire human rights. Still, there is no doubt about. But what we have done. Be necessary. The role of state, they have larger role in controlling human rights violation done by the corporation, third persons, individuals, etc., etc. For example, the crime against women is committed by not by the state, only by the individual. Similar common person. The companies are fighting the natural resources, so that is also there. Then the bonded labor, child labor, and all the not done by the government, human rights violation done by the corporate, perpetuated by individuals. Individuals are now in violating human rights. So this is the first thing. And last week itself, the girls were subjected to some difficulty, etc. So these are the things under these situations. Earlier, state was directly responsible, was held responsible. Now the state as a government, state was a definite in regulating the activities of the individuals or government. In the last week itself, they were regulating the activities of these third persons. This is one thing I would like to emphasize. So the pandemic, as once earlier again reiterated, emphasized the role of the state. We have to emphasize the role of the state. Vis-a-vis the individuals who violate the human rights, or the state has to take or the state has to take actions, whatever it is. So that is what we have to appreciate. The second thing is reference to the future rights. We have to take consideration the economic aspects. So economic considerations will play a vital role with reference to protection of human rights. So these are the 2 points based on the experience, experience. So I am taking 3 case studies to explain my position. The first one is with reference to migrant laborers. So though I don't like using the word migrant, because so I am taking 3 case studies to explain my position. So from India, people migrate to Middle East, people migrate to Australia, people migrate to America, migrate to various countries. IT people migrate. We also talk about Britain, etc., etc. So these people are truly practical laborers. One purpose, they are truly migrant workers. So the problem is with there were several people, they were working in Middle East from Tamil Nadu. So they were stranded there in various countries. For example, in Middle East, some people from Singapore, some people in some other countries. So how to get them back to India? So people, in the pandemic, this was the first to Tamil Nadu, especially India and Tamil Nadu, especially when there is no international air transportation. The second issue is today Tamil Nadu is much more dependent on the so-called the people migrating from other the North India, especially UP, MP, and also Bihar, and to some extent even from North. They were and also West Bengal, etc. So when these people are, that's why I have to use them in inverted. The so-called migrant labor, because the Constitution allows us to migrate from any part of move freely between the territory of India, and I don't know how they got the stigma migrant worker. That is because they're crossing the state borders, not the nation borders, but state borders. But in this problem, we could not send them back. We could not truly migrate, at least not provide them proper sanitation. We could not provide them proper food, etc., etc. And later on, only we woke up, and the government gave them free the ration under PDS system, public distribution system, free rice, free wheat, etc., etc. So this is a they were standard there in various countries. Some people from Singapore, some people in some other countries. South Indian people, that is the so-called migrant workers. So in the native, in the worst state, for example, in Tamil Nadu, they were seen as they were unwelcome guests. So when they wanted to go back to their native state, there all is much more dependent on, so they were seen as unwelcome because they thought they are bringing corona. The people bringing a pandemic along with them, because in Chennai it is very much there. So they were like they were like stateless persons. So if you want to draw an analogy, they were like stateless persons. They could not go to their country of their home state. They could not. They were treated as untouchables or in their host state also. This is one problem. The second problem, which I would like to very much participants, I am also welcoming them. 300 plus participations are so-called migrant labor, because the Constitution allows us between the territory of India, the nation forest. So when these people, the thing is that is the right to decent burial. So this is very, very important. The first thing is we witnessed 2 doctors who died during the middle of March during this pandemic. One person is from Andhra Pradesh. He died in the Apollo Hospital. Seen a government area. People did not native state want to touch him, etc., etc. The other person is he's a very good servant. He was a director of a hospital. While treating some patients, he became a victim of the corona. His name is Simon Hercules. So he's buried during this pandemic. His name is Hercules, but however, his burial became an Hercules seen as they were equally task. He was about to buried in the being a Christian in the Kilpauk cemetery, but people did not allow him to. When they wanted to go back to their stateless persons, they could not also they were seen to their country of to bury. So he was taken away. So only his colleague, with the help of his own hands, buried him. So this time the government woke up and they invoked the Public Act, and they passed it, all these things. By the time the Honorable High Court, the Madras High Court also took a suo motu, filed a case, and they said right to decent burial is a fundamental right under Article 21 of Indian Constitution. Earlier also in Pandit Sadananda case also they said the freedom and the freedom under Article 21 is also 300 plus participations are there. So second thing is with reference to available to person his body even after his death. So this is also we have to, because of lack of awareness. First thing is one problem. I to decent person is from Andhra Pradesh. He died, which is recognized as a fundamental or human right, whatever you make. Another person is he is a state and they had to invoke. They were also the Honorable was referring to Section 297 of IPC section, and they were so he was taken away. So this time they passed it about that right to decent, the right to the freedom and the freedom that are also we have to because the third case studies with reference to right to health or health care. Madam Bismi is there, she will be appropriately talking from Andhra. They were also talking, that is why I'm using it as a third example, as I can adjust that time, etc. So we know Article 21 of Indian Constitution, right to life is similarly hospital, when UDHR, to one ICECR, these things they recognize right to life, we have right to health. So in the 2001, the subcommittee, United Nations subcommittee rapporteur Paul Hunt, in his report to the right to health, he identified how important these are. Yes, and they said right to in Pandit Sadananda everyone is also available to this and one right to health care. This is the thing. The second thing is includes entitlement, which is recognized as a so the state has to step in Section 297 of IPC. It is an immediate obligation on the states. And the fourth thing is international assistance for realizing spoken about patent, and you would have touched upon the IPR and the health issues. So, Bismi is that she will be elaborately talking. That is why I put it in the third right to life. We have recognized right to life, and right to health. We have right to health care. With right to health care, we have right to act a patent and pandemic to manage the right to health. And lastly, there is been stretched at an affordable price. So this was the problem we faced in Tamil Nadu. So to treat one from this right to health, we have right to good patient. The government is XR. So this was the problem we faced in Tamil Nadu. So to treat one, so the government has to step to the so this was the problem, and so to treat one, it was free. But the government and they had to prescribe medical also. So this is also an eye opener. The fourth thing is, if I will just with this reference to right to education. So everything is essential. They have opened it. Even in Tamil Nadu, they have opened all these streams. In the entire India, for the sake of money, they have opened several shops which are necessary or whatever it is. But still, we have not come out with a policy how to start these schools. So now the schools can accommodate 20 children. Then we have to provide them social distancing. Then only 10 students can be accommodated. So then we should have 1 day to morning session, afternoon session, then in between sanitation must take place. All these things we have to take into consideration. This is also, so these 4 examples I have taken from Tamil Nadu point of to highlight that in future, in realization of this reference to in connection with the realization of human rights during pandemic, we have to learn lessons. The role of state will be enormous. The state has to shoulder more responsibility in bringing a realization of human rights, and necessarily the economic consequences will be, economic considerations will be there for the protection of human rights during these things. One more thing I would like to draw attention of the all audience and the panelists is we have article. We have article 355. The 355 says the central government still is obligated to help the state with reference to external aggression and internal disturbances. So we should also talk about what is during this pandemic. Now the schools are not talking things. Today we are talking about cooperative federalism. The state should also help the central government also help. We have to provide states. That's why in terms of helping the migrant workers in coming up with the policies, etc., etc. In times we understand and we appreciate cooperative federalism. Now the role of central government is also there, and these are the lessons we have learned from this pandemic with vis-a-vis protection of human rights. I thank the organizers for giving me a wonderful opportunity. Now it is over to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Malavika,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
proceed for me.
Hope I was in time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hope I was in time.
Sir, shall I continue?
Yeah, please proceed. Please proceed.
Thank you, sir, for shedding light on the importance of human rights. It was indeed very insightful. Now we have the next distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. C.S. Patil. Dr. Chidananda Reddy S. Patil pursued his studies in law at the University Law College, Dharwad. He obtained master's degree in law from University of Mysore, specializing in constitutional law. He is a first rank holder in LLM with 2 gold medals to his credit awarded by the Mysore University. In addition, the government of Karnataka has awarded him for securing first rank in LLM. He holds a doctorate in law from the Karnataka University, Dharwad. Sir has taught students from various colleges, including University Law College. Sir has published and edited books and has also published more than 50 articles in various law journals and magazines. He was one of the experts to submit a research paper to the Committee on Reforms of Criminal Justice, which was chaired by Honorable Dr. Justice V.F. Malimat. He has drafted many legislations for the government of Karnataka, including the Karnataka State Human Rights Courts Rules 2006. Sir will now talk about protection of human rights of professionals during pandemic. We are delighted to have you with us today, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairman, Professor David Ambrose, sir, my co-panelist, Professor Vishvanath, Professor Bismi, the host professors, Professor Sudesh, Professor Nadagowda, Professor Satish Gowda, other faculty members, and all the dear participants. Thank you, Professor David Ambrose. You have given a very lucid picture of the troubles that we are living through, and you have touched upon very important aspect of decent burial to those corona warriors who laid down their life, who fell for the sake of others, did not get even what minimum they deserved. So in this context, I am to share certain of the views in relation to human rights of professionals during pandemics. And I am going to touch upon 2 professions in the real sense of that. law profession and medical profession. And I have added the teachers also, teaching profession also for this, because they are another set of people who are going through terrible problems here. When we speak of the movement of professions, they have moved from chaos to organization. From organization, there was consolidation, and later there was autonomy and a sort of monopoly created in favor of those professions, so that they will decide who will be on the rolls, who should be admitted for the privileges, and who should continue to be there on the rolls. This was so because they are considered to be knowledgeable people. Because they are knowledgeable people, they regulate themselves, give total autonomy to them, let them decide what they should do, which degrees are to be admitted, who should be on the rolls, who should not be on the rolls. So that's how professions became autonomous. And taking the standard definitions of professions, I take two definitions, one from Roscoe Pound. He says, there is much more in a profession than a traditionally dignified calling. There is much more in a profession than a traditionally dignified calling. The term refers to a group of men pursuing a learned art as a common calling in the spirit of public service, no less a public service, because it may incidentally be a means of livelihood. Pursuit of the art in the spirit of public service is the primary purpose. So here I want your attention to this expression, public service, in the spirit of public service. They are the people who are pursuing a learned art to serve others in the spirit of public service. Maybe incidentally they are earning their livelihood out of this profession. It may be incidentally. Serving is the dominant role. Incidentally earning livelihood is the servient purpose of a profession, as per the definition of Roscoe Pound. Justice Brandeis of the American Supreme Court has applied 3 criteria to a profession. 1, a profession is an occupation for which the necessary preliminary training is intellectual in character, involving knowledge and to some extent learning as distinguished mere skill. These are the knowledgeable people. They have to pursue those prescribed standard degrees. Intellectual input is the basic preliminary thing for a profession. Second, it is an occupation in which is pursued largely for others, not merely for one's self. Pro bono publico commitment again. And third, it is an occupation is not the accepted measure of success. So professions are not to make money, not to amass wealth. They are to serve the society. This is one thing. So when the professionals go by ideal, whether they are lawyers or doctors, teachers, of course, they are there, always known to be underpaid. They are serving the society. And in return, as human beings, they also should be entitled to all those rights to which any other ordinary human being is entitled to. All those human rights relating to life, liberty, and equality and dignity, as defined in the Protection of Human Rights Act, which are available under the Constitution and various international documents. They should have right to participate in civic and political activities. Their economic and cultural rights should be protected. They have to have a dignified standing in the society, social position as professionals, and they should have, most important, right to adequate emoluments, just conditions of service, and of course, the professional independence. Quickly, these are the things that are protected as far as professionals are concerned. Just conditions of service is very, very important. Right to adequate emoluments is very important. Now, coming to the position of advocates, I am not speaking of the well-off advocates. I am speaking of an advocate who is committed to his profession, who is a beginner, who is a rural advocate, and who has rendered humble service. Considering the position of an advocate, one important thing I want everyone to appreciate is Section 30 of the Advocates has come into force with effect from May 2011. What is this Section 30 of Advocates Act, and if it has come into force in May 2011, what is so great about this to be appreciated? Remember, Section 30 of Advocates Act speaks of right of advocates to practice. It speaks of right of advocates to practice, and unfortunately, it was enforced after 50 years from 1961 to 2011. It was lying a dead letter, and ultimately in 2011, it was enforced. Now, advocates have a right to appear before any court, including the Supreme Court, throughout the territory of India. So now the position has changed. Earlier, advocate was an officer of the court. Court was deciding who shall be its officer, who shall not be its officer. Now, advocate can appear in the courts as a matter of right. So even after enforcement of Section 30 of the Advocates Act, even when he gets his right to appear before the court, this COVID situation created certain of the circumscribing limits on his right of profession, right to appear before court, because courts are also closed and they are operating only in a limited manner. So in this situation, what happened, all of us know, on 7th July, few days before, the Bar Council of India has filed a petition before the Supreme Court, highlighting the financial difficulties that are faced by the lawyers. And the Bar Council has said it has no funds to help lawyers who are in need of help. And in that petition, it has sought directions to the central government, state governments, and governments of union territories to arrange financial assistance by way of interest-free loans up to 3 lakhs to each advocates who want that assistance, which can be repaid over a period of 12 months in easy installments. This is the situation. The Bar Council has gone to the Supreme Court on behalf of the advocates who are not in a position to meet their bare minimum needs because of the pandemic situation. Some of those who had little money, they have spent that money over a period of 3 months. And there is an example given in the petition itself. The petition says some of them are facing virtual starvation. This is the fate of a professional in the COVID situation. 16,000 advocates out of 64,000 advocates of Delhi have applied for the assistance of 5,000 rupees, which was granted by the Bar Council of Delhi. So when they said an assistance of 5,000 will be given, 16,000 advocates applied. That reflects the gravity of the prevailing situation. And the petition mentions that these advocates cannot take up any other avocation because Section 35 of the Advocates prohibits the advocates and the rules from taking up any other job or avocation for their livelihood. And suddenly, if they want to take up, that should be very difficult because it may not be available. So when advocates are playing a very important role in administration of justice delivery system, it is necessary that their well-being is to be looked after. See, somebody should, state should bother, society should bother about the well-being of these people. And whatever that is available in the form of welfare fund, the fund cannot be diverted because there are statutory provisions which prohibit diversion of funds from law advocates welfare funds. And we have heard of the Gujarat Bar Council allowing the advocates to take up any other job against the prohibition that is contained in section 35. And as a mark of protest or expression, whatever you call, we saw the photographs of advocates selling vegetables in Rajkot. So that is the situation. And when it comes to the point of our own state of Karnataka, the Karnataka State Bar Council has constituted a COVID relief fund. We have to appreciate KSPC has done a good job. It has taken a lot of initiative to protect the interest of the advocates in this COVID situation. And they have taken contributions. Senior advocates have contributed to the tune of 5 lakh rupees. Bar Council of India has contributed 1 crore. Karnataka State Bar Council itself has invested 2 crores. And the government of Karnataka is giving 5 crores. A portion of that is already released and the other is on the way. And this COVID relief fund is constituted because diversion of welfare fund is not permitted. And now, as a response to this situation, the Karnataka State Bar Council has started collecting 1,000 rupees per head at the time of enrollment itself for any exigencies. And it is unfortunate to note that certain of the bar associations in the rural areas have gone to the extent of arranging even ration kits for the advocates, ration kits. It is such a pathetic situation. I talked to the office bearers of the State Bar Council. They said they have acknowledgements from the officers issued to the effect that an advocate is not entitled to a BPL card. We have read in the newspapers that up to November, ration is free for certain section of the society. Up to September, gas connection is free. But lawyers will not get this. Doctors will not get this because they do not have that eligibility card which will entitle them for this assistance during the problem situation. Such a pathetic thing. It is nice to be on the rolls of a profession, but only the person who is suffering, and the petition in Supreme Court mentions about the suicide by an advocate also. And yesterday, a petition is circulated by the advocates of Maharashtra. There is a signature campaign which speaks about the plight of young advocates who are finding it very difficult to exist. And there are different bar associations who have filed petitions with the chief justices to start functioning the courts. They are functioning in a limited manner. But what has happened here is, because these advocates are not in a position to equip their officers with the gadgets, equipments that are necessary for video conferencing and online appearance, some of them are not in a position to pay even their house rents, office rents, and some of them are laid off, they are not paid salary. Lot of problems have cropped up. That is the plight of the lawyers. Then coming to doctors, Professor Ambrose was making reference how the number is increasing. All over the country, numbers are increasing and hospitals are getting filled. And beds in private hospitals are also reserved. The tariff is fixed by the government. So much of fees for this, etc. Whether that is to be fixed by the government or profession itself should do is a different thing. But the fact is that the government is fixing that. But what about these doctors whom we call Corona warriors? A doctor who gets into a PPE kit, PPE equipment is a very expensive this one. And once they get into that, they will be there in that for 12 hours. 12 hours, he cannot go to bathroom, he cannot go to canteen. And after 12 hours, when he removes that PPE kit, it is stated their face, their arms, fingers, everything, it gets a different look. Such a difficult situation these frontline Corona warriors are facing. They want to see that no one will fall. And they are cheerful. Their morals are high. See, when that is the situation, it is the duty of the establishment of the state to stand with them. See, when they are serving like that, they have to have that morale. The work is done with a lot of motivation. It is done with a lot of passion. We speak of wearing masks. We speak of not traveling to places. We speak of not meeting people. We are scared of going to our office. And these are the people who go to the front line. They stand by the side of the afflicted patient and they serve them. And that requires a lot of passion. And they want to see that no one will fall. And these warriors have forgotten their families. We have to understand the emotions of their kith and kin, spouses, relatives. And we have to appreciate already more than 30 doctors have died. Professor Ambrose referred to that great doctor who laid down his life serving patients. And he was taken from crematorium to crematorium. He was not allowed to be buried in a decent manner. And one of his colleagues, nobody came to dig the graveyard also. His colleague doctor, along with the driver, they dug the grave and buried the doctor who laid down his life. See, these things, 30 doctors, more than 30 doctors laying down their life will not make headlines. Vikas Yadav becomes the breaking news. All channels for the past 2 days are occupied with that. And these Corona warriors are unsung heroes. We have to salute them. We have to salute their spouses, their children, their near and dear ones for the service they are rendering. And the government has to stand behind them. And the society has to stand behind them. It is unfortunate. Even in Delhi, the doctors are not paid. They are not paid for 3 months and we expect them to stand in the front line. See, they are there in the hospital serving people. 3 months salaries are not paid. What should happen to the family? How their needs are to be met with? The Delhi High Court asked, we are calling doctors Corona warriors. Can we not pay them? This is the question that was asked to MCD by the Delhi High Court. And in Karnataka, when the doctors went on strike, their honorarium was increased from 45,000 to 60,000 rupees. These people are working on contract basis. Look at that. Striving, struggling to serve people, discharge their professional commitments and help others. And in that situation, they have to bargain for their legitimate due of minimum salary. That is the most unfortunate thing that happens. And now government has pressed into service the medical students, nurses, etc. So many nursing staff also has sacrificed their lives for this purpose. We have to appreciate that. Then coming to our own profession, teachers. All those rules that are made, that teacher-student ratio, so many sections in a college, etc. There is a purpose in that. This is education. There should be a relationship between the student and taught. And there should be one-to-one interaction. Learning should take place. That's why all these rules are there. But what has happened? Once the pandemic breaks out, we move on to online classes, because platform can accommodate any number, teachers are indiscriminately relieved from the jobs. There are directives, there are circulars from the government, from the universities that teachers should not be relieved. And during this period of crisis, their salaries should not be deducted, they should be paid. But despite that, teachers are relieved of their duties. For about 35 to 40,000 teachers are relieved of their duties, and their minimum source of earning has gone dry in our state, right from primary schools to the professional institutions. Teachers are relieved. Now their source of food is at stake. And in Karnataka, we had 2 guest lecturers commit suicide because they were not in a position to earn that minimum thing. They come and say a qualified person, a person who is there to shape the lives of the children of somebody else, should not meet with that disastrous end. But unfortunately, that is the thing that happens. And apart from those 2 guest lecturers, there are other 8 people who have committed suicide. There is no social security for these people. Whatever social security measures are there, there should be a vehement adherence insisted to compliance. Otherwise, the employers will not take care of the interest of these people. So in this situation, there should be a strong mechanism to enforce the existing security provisions, social security provisions, working condition provisions, and wherever it is necessary, there should be enacting of a separate law providing a provision for the security of professionals. It becomes really embarrassing for a professional to ask for ration kit. But without ration kit, he cannot survive, his family cannot survive. See, the professional should take pride in what he is. Okay, when he is venturing to serve people, his minimum needs are to be served by the society, and professionals are entitled to equal human rights, equality. When a BPL card holder gets a ration kit of so many kgs of rice, flour, wheat, oil, why not a professional? Because he is also a human being. He also has to live a life with human dignity. Okay, with that, I have probably touched my time limit. I thank the organizers for providing this excellent opportunity to be with our scholarly friend, Professor David Ambrose, and other panelists. And as Professor Sudesh was telling earlier, if there is time, there may be taking up some questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for the opportunity given. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was truly informative, and I'm sure the participants thoroughly enjoyed your session. Our next esteemed speaker is Professor Dr. Bismi Gopalakrishnan. Professor Dr. Bismi Gopalakrishnan pursued her studies in law and obtained her master's degree in law from University of Kerala, specializing in constitutional and administrative law. She completed her doctoral degree in law at University of Kerala in 2007. Ma'am is the Dean and Director, School of Indian Legal Thought, MJ University, Kottayam. She was selected from India as a sole participant to take part in the United States Department of State Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs Professional Exchange Program, International Visitor Leadership Program. Ma'am was the principal investigator, UGC-sponsored major research project on legal regulation of private healthcare sector with special reference to Kerala from 2009 to 2011. Ma'am has written Handbook Shakti Laws to ensure gender justice. This was published by Center for Women's Studies and Cell to Combat Sexual Harassment, University of Kerala, and has also published 10 nationally recognized legal research journals and many articles in various law journals and magazines. Ma'am will now talk about human right to health during pandemic. We are extremely obliged to have you with us today, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you. A warm good evening to one and all. Most respected Professor Dr. David Ambrose, sir, Professor Dr. C.S. Patil, sir, Professor Vishvanath, sir. I'm very happy that I've been given an opportunity to take part in this virtual international seminar. For that, I'm extremely thankful to Dr. Suresh Nadagowda, sir, Professor Dr. Suresh Nadagowda, sir, Professor Sudesh, sir, and Dr. Satish Gowda, sir. Basically, when I'm talking about the right to health in this COVID-19 pandemic, actually, I'm speaking from Trivandrum, the capital city of Kerala, where we are facing a triple lockdown. Triple lockdown because of the rising number of COVID-19 cases. Yesterday, we had 472 cases, and out of which 129 came from Trivandrum. So you can understand the reason why we are facing the triple lockdown. And in Kerala, yesterday, we have nearly 3,517 people are being hospitalized, and 1,84,112 people are under observation. So this is the situation. Life here at the capital city is standstill, and we are actually on the verge, certain areas of the capital city, we are on the verge of the super spread. There is the areas like the coastal areas called Pundura. Actually, we have a large number of cases that has been reported within a span of 2 or 3 days itself. So situation is quite really dangerous. And it is at this precise point that we are talking about the right to health aspects of COVID-19. Because when we are talking about COVID-19, it is numbed each one of us. We don't know what to expect. But on a positive note, we have our public health care law actually extending support to us. Public health care law is seen in diverse dimensions as far as this COVID-19 is concerned. We can find the presence of public health care law in the conduct of surveillance. We can find this, the public health law, the presence of public health law in the treatment of options, the isolations and quarantine instructions that is being given by the state. Again, we can also find the proactive role played by the public health law when we find that, we have instructions like seizure of property in order to establish emergency response centers and to ensure availability and rapid distribution of pharmaceuticals and supplies. And again, we also find the proactive, the caring touch of the state when we find the healthcare or the disaster management people working for us so that, everything is at least made under control. Again, at the same time, we can also find interference with freedom of movement, the right to control one's health and body with privacy and property. So the fact is that when we are talking about the public health care law, the right to health, and the responses to COVID-19, what we can find is, we can find the public health law extending its support, and the support definitely it is received by the Constitution. It is being deeply written in the Constitution. The Constitution does support the public health law. especially in the union list. Again, especially the list 1 entries 28 and 81. Again, you have the state list also, which mentions public health as a state subject. And also you have the entry 26 of the concurrent list, which talks about the legal and medical and other professionals. So constitutionally also, we can find the support that the present situation requires. But what are the other challenges that the public health care law and right to health faces? What is the challenges? We have to accept it. We have to face it, because time, every moment, every day, every moment, it is getting worse and worse, because we have not invented the magical vaccine. Till that, the situation we cannot predict what the situation is. So what are the challenges that is being posed to right to health? All of us know that right to health means it is affordable, available, and accessible healthcare services. We don't have any doubt on that. It must be available, affordable, and accessible. So when we talk of COVID-19, the first thing that comes into our mind is, to what extent are we giving treatment to non-COVID patients? It is a question that each one should ask. To what extent are we giving treatment to non-COVID-19 patients? There are several instances where, we can find common people denied basic healthcare services. There is a panic everywhere, which states that, there is even, there have been reports stating that, if you want healthcare services from this particular hospital, do the test and then come. So our common people, there are reports where common people are being denied healthcare services. And again, there are instances in which treatment like dialysis, chemotherapy, and other healthcare services like blood transfusion has been denied to non-COVID-19 patients. Is it in compliance with right to health? Is it in compliance with the Hippocratic oath that we take? Should we give more focus to COVID-19 and ignore or sideline the non-COVID-19 patients? We have cases filed before the Delhi High Court. We have cases filed before the Kerala High Court, where instances where people stated that, we are being denied basic healthcare services. Basic healthcare services are being denied to non-COVID-19 patients. So does it get along with the right to health principles that we are adhering to? It is a fact that every one of us are in fear. But fear is not an answer to sideline the availability, accessibility, and affordability of healthcare services to the needy. Now, the second challenge that we are facing, I told you, yesterday itself, we have 472 cases reported in Kerala. The number of cases, it is the same in different states also. Since I'm from Kerala, I'm just pointing out the situation in Kerala. We have 472 cases and 3,517 people are hospitalized. And I've already mentioned 1,84,112 are under observation. Our question, to what extent is our healthcare services really equipped to cater to the needs of these COVID-19 patients, which is on rise every single moment? Are we in a position to provide treatment equally to one and all? Or is the reality something else? Do we lack medical facilities and equipments? Are we on the verge of rationing medical available healthcare resources? The question is very straight. We will slowly move into a situation in which we will be forced to allocate the already scarce healthcare resources, especially life-saving ventilators. We will face acute shortage of medicines, of oxygen cylinders, and the ventilators. Are we ready to face it? And to what extent right to health protocols comply with this particular situation? It is a triage situation. It is a triage situation in which law, human rights, and bioethics converge together. We don't have an answer because we don't have adequate healthcare resources to cater to the need of one and all. So we have to allocate the healthcare resources. So when we are allocating healthcare resources, are we in a position to take the most rational decision, the most reasonable decision? We will be in a position to take the most reasonable decision if our demand actually is in existence with the supply, is in concordance with the supply. But if the curve is unnatural, if the demand does not meet the supply, we will definitely have to think of allocating scarce resources, and definitely we will have to think of medical rationing protocols. So again, when we think of medical rationing, what is the criteria that we are talking about? Is how can we differentiate between the most needy and the next patient? How we can actually differentiate between patients? What are the criteria that we are going to choose? So this is, and again, when we are going to choose the criteria, definitely it has to breathe in the human right principles, especially right to health. So the fact is that, definitely medical professionals will face certain questions, certain open-ended questions. For example, the first question when they are going to allocate the the scarce healthcare resources is, first one, what do you expect? What should we seek to maximize? Is it the quality of life? Is it the prospective economic productivity of the person that you're going to save? Or is it the quality of life that becomes important? I'll repeat, is it the life saved? Is it the quality of life? Or is it the prospective economic output of that person whom we are going to save? And how do we determine the quality of life? How are you going to determine the quality of life? How are you going to say that, you give the resources to this particular person and don't give resources to this particular patient? What is the standard of determining the quality of life? And again, when a patient is differentially abled, or in other words, when he faces severe health impairments, should we sideline him? And again, do impairments to physical and mental functions necessarily limit an individual's quality of life? And again, so all these questions will definitely become very serious questions in the coming days, because COVID-19 is slowly increasing every moment. The rate is increasing. So we will have to face these very crucial questions. And the fact is that, the basic fact is that, the government or the state does not have the required healthcare resources. So within the available healthcare resources, they have to cater to the healthcare needs of the people who approaches them for healthcare services. So how to resolve all this? how to give an answer, the right answer, which is fine-tuned by the human right principles. So definitely the second important challenge that we are going to face is how to go about with this particular scarcity of medical resources, how to allocate the scarce medical resources to COVID-19 patients. And again, because these healthcare facilities, it is already scarce, and there is an adequate lack of ventilators. And once the pandemic outbreaks to a certain or it explodes, it becomes a great challenge to each one of us. Now, the third challenge that all of us are facing is the testing facilities. To what extent, when Right to Health says that it must be accessible, affordable, and available, to what extent it is affordable, to what extent it is available, to what extent it is accessible to one and all. When we put a cap of rupees 5,000 or 4,000 on testing, and when the facilities of the private healthcare sector is not pulled into, are we curtailing the boundaries of right to health? So, or should we, based on right to health, say that, look, because COVID-19, it based upon rapid tests. The more you test, the more you can find out, and the more you can put people under treatment, and then you can, again, you can restrict the morbidity rate. But when the test itself is not accessible and affordable, to what extent can we say that, we are speaking about right to health in this particular context? Another thing that we are talking is the role of private healthcare sectors. We have to rope in the private healthcare sectors to its maximum, so that both the public and the private healthcare sectors must go in hand, so that you can understand that you are catering to the right to health of the people. You cannot say that, look, the private healthcare sectors, because especially I've already mentioned, there are certain instances in which you find that, the private healthcare sector stating that, we are not in a position to give the adequate treatment. Now, if such situations, if such stands are being taken, what we must do is that, we must even think of canceling the license provisions of the private healthcare sectors. So these are the important challenges that COVID-19 is sure to give to all of us in the coming days. And again, the fourth challenge definitely is the treatment options that we are giving to diseases, non-communicable diseases, like cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and diabetes. All those non-communicable diseases. We have sidelined it. So to what extent can we sideline it? Can we say that, till COVID-19 subsides, till we find a magical vaccine, let this non-communicable diseases remain non-treated? We cannot take such a stand, because it goes against the right to health principles that we are adhering to. So these challenges, we are going to face these challenges in the coming days, because as a state, yes, we are fully geared up to face COVID-19, because we don't have any other go. We have to face it. And Kerala definitely, it is made, actually, it is recognized internationally for the measures that it is taken to face COVID-19, to curtail COVID-19, especially in the administrative measures, especially setting up different supplying essential goods and services, and again putting forward the post-lockdown strategies, and again other the talking about the containment guidelines. Everything Kerala has been widely acclaimed as far as the different guidelines are concerned. But the coming days, it will not be an easy task. It will not be it will not be very easy, because as I've already mentioned, we have acute scarcity of healthcare resources. We have acute scarcity of healthcare personnel, and we are facing COVID-19, which is on the rise every moment. So fully geared up decisions, every decisions that we take must be definitely must breathe in the human right principles. But when we are faced with constraints, to what extent can we respect right to health and move ahead? That is a very difficult question for all of us. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for shedding light on the reality we are going through. We next have Professor Dr. M. Vishvanath, the last speaker of this technical session. Professor Dr. M. Vishvanath pursued masters and specialized in criminal law at University Law College, Bangalore University. He completed his doctoral degree in law at Karnataka University on the topic Critical Study of Legal Control of Organized Crime in India. Presently, Sir is a professor at PG Department of Studies in Law, Dean Faculty of Karnataka University, and Principal at Karnataka University's SSK Law College. Sir was a Dr. D.C. Pavte Visiting Fellow at the Department of Politics and International Studies and Center for Governance and Human Rights, Cambridge University. And Sir was associated as a Senior Fellow at the Sydney Sussex College, Cambridge. Besides, to his credit, there are 20 articles published in national and international journals. Sir will now be talking about human rights and state rights, the lockdown experience. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Malavika. Good evening, all. Respected Chair, Professor David Ambrose, my former principal, my well-wisher, my guru, and my good friend, Professor C.S. Patil, and my learned friend, Professor Bismi Gopalakrishnan, Professor Sudesh, Professor Nadgowder, Professor Satish. I'm in a very unique situation. The organizers asked me to score 36 runs in 6 balls because of the time pandemic. Fine. My topic was related to this. What would I choose for? So I had some ideas as to what we bring in state rights versus human rights, and human rights and state rights. Basically, I would just try to scroll up on the UDHR preamble for 3 things. Number 1, it tells, whereas recognition of inherent dignity of equal and inalienable rights of all members of human family is a foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. So I'm looking into inherent dignity. Whether state is there or not, this inherent dignity is an essential element of every human. So what does it mean for us? It means that we as humans are supposed to guarantee, guard, defend, and respect these rights at all times. Now we are at an unprecedented time. Nobody expected that we would see in our lifetime something like this, but it's a reality. So in this very crucial time, in an emergency time, how would you guarantee, guard, defend, and respect these rights? Was a bigger question for all of us. So on 31st January, the first confirmed case came up in India. 4th March, mandatory screening starts for the international travelers. On 12th March, we see the first COVID death. 22nd March, we see the Janta curfew. On the same day, we see suspension of the air and road transport. On 24th, we come across suddenly and we see a lockdown announced by the government of India. So the lockdown was announced on 24th. So the government of India did it believing that it has a right to do so. I'm using the word believing so because the state probably has rights. So when you came out with this lockdown, how probably it contrasted with the guarantees that were in the constitution. Quite obvious from last 2 days, today and yesterday, there are many speakers, starting from Justice Yuvraj Patil, has highlighted this human rights proposition. But the context is that my argument stands, does state have rights or they're obligated or they're duty oriented? I strongly believe that the state is more a duty oriented or obligated rather than telling that state has a right. The state has a right only for one reason, that is to protect the interest of its citizens and what we are speaking of, the human rights. But unfortunately, in the present situation, we don't find that the state is using its so-called rights, if it is so, that it is trying to protect the basic rights that are inherent, because these inherent rights existed before the state came into picture. Now, the issues are, when the government came up with this lockdown and brought in this Disaster Management Act into picture, whether we were running into a disaster or there was already a disaster, I don't know. It's left to everybody. There are more questions in my discussion rather than answers. I feel that we were not in a disaster situation when the lockdown was announced. I feel that we forced ourselves upon the disaster, because when the lockdown was planned, probably in all 360-degree angle, if you look into, it was not planned. Probably we were wanting a disaster to happen. That is what we see today. Why? Because the planning probably failed us. We all know that as a nation, our health system is quite fragile. And sorry to tell that we were robust pre-1991 or 92. But post-LPG, we are diminished, declined our systems, especially of health, which was reachable to all. And there was only one, that is the government services. But today that is not the picture. So this Disaster Management Act, which came into picture, suddenly came across the country. One nation, one lockdown, one law. Does it mean that this can work? My point is that this scenario would have worked much, much better if it was decentralized. Look at the failures. That the state claiming to be a right, which is duty, if it has strengthened its grassroots structures and involved them in fighting this pandemic, probably we would have seen much, much better picture today. But we did not, because it came from the top. So when it penetrates from the top, how will it works? Because it should flow as a fountain from the down rather than penetrating from the top, pouring from the top. So this act of the disaster management or this the Epidemic Diseases Act did not sustain us for many things. So I would try to concentrate on two important authorities, executing authorities, when as state, because everybody has spoken about so many things about the state, the police department and the revenue department. The police department is the one is at the first charge of any state when it comes into any actions of especially these kind of huge actions. The police stands in the front line, and definitely they come under the definition of the COVID warriors. A salute to the policemen for the work what they have done. But unfortunately, in a state like India, in ours, that how this has been misused, mishandled, abused, we would find this throughout the country. The police atrocities committed on the people probably who were in need of something. Unfortunately, there was no scope for us to probably scan or censor or segregate them who are actually in need. We were only one thing, that nobody should come out of the house. Nobody should move around, because we believe that they are the carriers of this pandemic. But unfortunately, it was not. Now, after the lockdown, we see the reality, what it is. So the police department, Professor Ambrose is there around. He knows what happened in Tamil Nadu, the police station, picking up the son and the father just for opening up the shop after 8, whatever happened. And it is not one of the cases that we tend to discuss, but this pandemic of lockdown situation has seen definitely the worst of the police force and also the good, to be excused. But I'm seeing how this police force have been probably used rather than better, but for the worst. The revenue department, which comes under the district collector or the commissioner, is so powerful. He controls the entire district and he has all powers under him. And the revenue department has real powers under the DM Act. That is where the power flows from. So being in a university, I understand, because we stay very close with all these departments, how this revenue department actually worked in this lockdown situation. Karnataka University, for example, had its science departments, and the authorities of the district authorities wanted an equipment from Karnataka University to be handed over to them. Unfortunately, the registrar was not in station and the DC wanted it immediately. They came to university, they broke open the lock and lifted the machine, went back. I strongly feel that if they would have coordinated better instead of using their powers, the Karnataka University itself would have been started its COVID center with the help of the district authorities. You could have got one more center. It could have helped. Let the missionary be there. Involve our science teachers. No, it's very exclusive in nature. We deal. Then second shock came when the state started to quarantine people who had come from different places or who has been identified with COVID symptoms or who has COVID positive. Shockingly, in a place like Dharwad, or of course it's there throughout the country, that people, the students stay in hostels. And the hostel students, most of them were sent back because of the lockdown. And fortunately or unfortunately, the government of Karnataka had a lockdown 4 days before or 5 days before the central lockdown came in. So when the state government has issued lockdown orders, we have sent back our students home. Most of them asked me, sir, when I am supposed to come back? I told 15 days probably. So most of them went back and we saw that their rooms were locked. And suddenly the DC comes and issues an order to the Vice Chancellor that they want to have all the hostels. And what to be done? The rooms were locked. They told, break it open. And I asked the question, sir, what about the things that are there in the rooms? The students would have kept many valuable things. They told, I am not responsible. I am there to only do this thing. Look at this excess authorities. They do their actions without any accountability, without responsibility. And I did write a letter to my Vice Chancellor asking, sir, please ask them a written letter that they are empowered to break open the locks and acquire that. Of course, the Act provides and the DM Act provides that, but it could have been probably much more matured actions that they would have identified certain places much before what China did. They build up. We had time to build up in lockdown period, but we did not. Teachers are put on duties. Unfortunately to tell, one of my colleagues has been put under duty of a village accountant. And you know what is his duty? His duty is to go stand outside the quarantine center, observe anybody is coming out, everybody is fine, then come and report, stand there for 8 hours. This is the authority. Now we are talking about the human rights and the state rights. Do you mean that this is what the state rights are? I don't feel so. The most terrifying thing is what a few of our colleagues had was the DM Act under Chapter 10 speaks about the punishment. It goes up to 2 years, 1 year, fine. If you miss, then you get a letter telling that this is the punishment. Look, I agree that we as a nation state, we as a citizen should join hands. But this mismanagement has created so much of chaos that we tend to be more scared rather than being more conducively working with the states. I feel the state really meddled up by not probably joining hands with its citizens much better. For this, I would like to quote Kubler-Ross, a Swiss psychologist who on death and dying, she has explained 5 stages of grief. Number 1, denial. Number 2, anger. Number 3, bargain. Number 4, depression. Number 5, acceptance. Now, probably we have reached all the stages. First, we denied that nothing to worry, COVID would not come, it's a hot place, nothing is going to happen to Indians, we're all robust, we all are strongly immunely built because we are all kinds of things. We denied. It came upon, we felt angry. What's happening? What is there? What to be done? Then started to bargain. Yes, something is there. I should condone myself to get something. Now, depression, because we see, oh my God. Oh, as Madam was explaining that 400, Madam, in Karnataka, we are seeing 2000. In Chennai, it is much worse. In Delhi, it is much worse. So we know how difficult it is. And we are at the 5th point, acceptance. That we are accepted that, yes, we should live with this corona. We should live with this COVID-19. So how I feel information and communication should be quite apt by the government. Otherwise, you are killing us intentionally or unintentionally. We need an emotional support. I means, as a people of this country, we need that support. And definitely the system should have that support. And the very important thing is guidance and direction, which probably I think we are missing, because in the state of Karnataka, you would find the circus of the ministers every day. Nobody is trying to guide us nor direct us. So it has been really tough situation. And I don't agree with the model that we tell that state has a right on this issue. I believe that state is obligated and you cannot waive away the inherent rights that we have. So I would try to end up with one word. Ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. I'll repeat, ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. The government believes this, the state believes that. I think they should do the right things. As Professor V.B. Coutinho was trying to tell in Portugal, that they are given temporary citizenship so that the people who are there would definitely get the benefit of the health benefits. But unfortunately in Delhi, the government wanted it that only Delhiites would get the benefits. If you reach this stage, definitely the rights of these people who we are talking about, especially of the vulnerable group, will be really a disaster. We are already in a disaster situation. So with this given time, I think I have tried to put up certain points that what may be relevant for the group to discuss, because there are more questions. I thank my alma mater, University Law College, especially Professor Sudesh, Nadgowder, and all of them for giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It certainly taught us more about the intricacies of human rights. This session was indeed very insightful and has stimulated our mind to think deeper with a wider ambit in order to understand the importance. Am I audible?
Yeah, please proceed.
It has provided a holistic learning experience to all of us. I now invite Satyajit MS of University Law College to propose the vote of thanks.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. Thank you, Madhavika. Greetings to the dignitaries present and all the participants. I, Satyajit MS, a student of University Law College, will be rendering the vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to thank all the esteemed resource persons for accepting our invite despite their busy schedules. I would like to thank Professor Dr. David Ambrose, sir, for presiding over the session and the highly intellectual and informative address. I would like to express heartfelt gratitude to Professor Dr. C.S. Patil, sir, Professor Dr. Bismi Gopalakrishnan ma'am, and Professor Dr. M. Vishvanath sir for the intellectually stimulating session. I would like to express gratitude to Professor Dr. Suresh V. Nadagodar sir, Honorable Principal, University Law College and Director of the workshop for his instrumental support and guidance. I would also like to thank Professor Dr. V. Sudesh sir, former Principal, Dean and Chairman of University Law College and the co-director of the workshop for the guidance. I would like to thank Professor Dr. N. Dasharath sir, Honorable Chairman, Department of Studies in Law and Dean Faculty of Law, who is also the co-director of the workshop. I would like to thank Dr. N. Satish Gowda sir, Senior Assistant Professor and Coordinator of the workshop for the guidance and efforts in conducting this workshop. I would also like to thank Dr. Chandrakanti ma'am for rendering the welcome address and the constant support in organizing this event. I would like to thank Jyoti Vishvanath ma'am and other guest faculty members for their support. I would like to thank all the participants of the workshop for turning up in huge numbers and making this a grand success. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the student organizing committee for making sure that this session was conducted in a hassle-free manner. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Okay, before closing this session, I would like to take a minute as I could not greet all the chairman and other panelists in the beginning because of some internet issue here. So I thank the chairman, Professor David Ambrose, and all other panelists for taking out the time and making a very useful and informative presentation. Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Shall we proceed to valedictory program, sir?
Okay.
Sudhir Swami, sir. In fact,
Sudhir Krishna Swami has already joined?
Joined, sir. Already, sir has joined, sir. Vice Chancellor of National School of Indian University, Professor Sudhir Krishna Swami, sir, has joined, sir.
Okay, okay.
So
shall we straightway start the valedictory session or how it is?
Ready, sir. We are ready now.
Okay, okay, right.
On time. So, Niharika?
How about foreign American professor?
Yeah. She is joining, sir. She is joining.
Okay.
So Madam said she will be joining at 5:40 sharp. So she has few clarifications and she'll be here.
Okay. I think it is already 5:40.
Yes, sir.
She will join.
Right. Anyway, we'll start with the program. Let her join in the middle.
Yeah, please.
Right.
Proceed, Niharika.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome everyone present here. A very good evening to all the guests. A heartfelt welcome to the distinguished dignitaries, esteemed guests, law professors, undergraduate and postgraduate students, research scholars, law professors present here. We would like to welcome you to the valedictory ceremony of the International Workshop on the Protection of Human Rights during the pandemic. To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. Nelson Mandela. The world has plummeted into chaos and uncertainty with the onslaught of the pandemic. With the world at its knees, even humanity has been questioned. However, even during the dark days, there is always hope for a better tomorrow. So, keeping that in mind, University Law College has taken up this topic for deliberation in order to discuss the intricacies and fundamentals of human rights and how it has been impacted during the unprecedented pandemic. I, Niharika D'Souza, student of University Law College, Bangalore University, consider it my privilege to be the master of ceremonies for this valedictory event. Let us begin by invoking the blessings of the Almighty. I request Siri Niranjana to render the invocation song.
जय जय हे भगवती सुर भारती तव चरणों प्रणमामः जय जय हे भगवती सुर भारती तव चरणों प्रणमामः नाद ब्रह्ममयी जय वाग्वीश्वरी नाद ब्रह्ममयी जय वाग्वीश्वरी शरणं ते गच्छामः जय जय हे भगवती सुर भारती तव चरणों प्रणमामः त्वमसि शरण्या त्रिभुवन धन्या सुरमुनि वन्द्या चरणा हर जडतां कुरु बोधि विकासं स्मित पंकजतनु विमले जय जय हे भगवती सुरभारती तव चरणौ प्रणमामः तव चरणौ प्रणमामः प्रणमामः. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Siri, for filling the atmosphere with a lot of divinity and happiness. At this outset, with several distinguished dignitaries present here, we would like to discuss what this workshop is all about. This virtual workshop has aimed at analyzing the role of human rights in uncertain situations brought about by the coronavirus pandemic. It is our privilege to announce that over 1,500 participants have registered to be a part of this event. We are honored to host several renowned and knowledgeable guests and resource persons who addressed key issues with respect to human rights within different spheres such as labor law, intellectual property rights law, constitutional law, inter alia. The workshop was divided into 4 technical sessions with renowned speakers addressing each session. The workshop was very interactive and academically stimulating, and indeed provided a holistic learning experience. At this outset, we have several distinguished dignitaries present here who have taken time off their busy schedule to be a part of the valedictory ceremony. I now request Professor Dr. V. Sudesh, former Principal and Dean, University Law College, Bangalore University, and co-director of this international virtual workshop, to deliver the welcome address and convey our heartfelt gratitude to the dignitaries present here today.
Thank you, Niharika. Hope I'll be able to share my screen. Yeah. Just making sure that in case I lose my video audio connection, this will be very clear. Good evening, everybody. It has been a really pleasant experience since yesterday, 10 o'clock when we started until now. Huge discussion on human rights during the pandemic. I, on behalf of Bangalore University, University Law College, and the Department of Studies in Law, rather Team ULC, extend a hearty welcome to all the guests, participants to the valedictory session of this international virtual workshop. Welcome one and all. Indeed, it has been our pleasure to have you all participate in the 2 days international virtual workshop. By all accounts, may I submit humbly that it has been a huge success. Yesterday, when the feedback form was submitted to all of us, we found a success ratio of 90%. All the participants said that the presentation was really good. Just a brief history of University Law College, just in case some of the participants are very new to this institution. Established in the year 1948 as Government Law College, starting with 2 year, 3 years LLB program, transferred by the government to the Bangalore University, since then known as University Law College, 1970 onwards. We introduced 5 years LLB course in the year 1986-87 for the first time in the country. And since then till now, all our students, graduates, postgraduates, PhD holders have been a success. They are there not only in India, but also abroad. May I just remind that one of the famous lawyers in the United States, working from Florida, Sheila Murthy, is a student of University Law College. So from Sheila Murthy to many of the sitting judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court today, we have an illustrious alumni. We have continued the legacy of University Law College in terms of being socially relevant. Today, our students are doing good and are meaningfully contributing to the society. Therefore, I wish that this legacy continues. It's my proud privilege to extend a hearty welcome on behalf of Bangalore University to one and all once again. This evening, we have a galaxy of intellectuals gracing the valedictory program. I extend a hearty welcome to the president of this valedictory function, our own beloved Professor Dr. Suresh V. Nadgowda, the principal of University Law College. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Furthermore, we extend hearty welcome to Professor Danixia, Professor of Law from Dade College, United States of America. I hope I have picked up the right photograph, madam.
Yes.
I think it's right. Yeah. Anyhow, welcome to you, ma'am. We would indeed be eagerly awaiting your valedictory address today. Thank you, and we extend a wholehearted welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, another guest, young and dynamic, Professor Dr. Sudhir Krishnaswamy, Honorable Vice Chancellor of National Law School of India, University, Bengaluru. He's a good friend of University Law College. We hope to see that our partnership with National Law School of India, University in academic contributions to each other will continue under his able leadership. Welcome, Professor Sudhir Krishnaswamy, sir.
Thank you very much.
Hearty welcome to our own student, former student, alumni, 3 years, Ponnanna, senior advocate and High Court of the High Court of Karnataka, former Advocate General. Ponnanna, I know you're very busy these days. You made some time for your own rather institution. Thank you, Ponnanna. Welcome to this valedictory session. Yeah. Hearty welcome to Sri S.F. Gautam Chand, member of the Karnataka State Bar Council of India and the president of University Law College Alumni Association. Sorry if some of you are wondering how come there is no photograph when other photographs were displayed. I think he has had some copyright because I could not pick up any photograph from the internet. Anyhow, welcome to my dear friend, Sri S.F. Gautam Chand. Hearty welcome to my colleagues in the college, Professor Dr. N. Dashrath, the Dean of the Faculty of Law and Head of the Department, Dr. N. Satish Gowda, Senior Assistant Professor and the coordinator who has worked very hard to make this program a great success, Dr. Jyoti Vishvanath, Senior Assistant Professor, Dr. Chandrakant Yal, Senior Assistant Professor, Madam Shivakumari, the librarian. Hearty welcome to one and all. Hearty welcome to professors, resource persons who are still with us. We have Professor Kutino who is joined in live here. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of the University Law College, all teachers, research scholars, students, and all the participants and the electronic media. A hearty welcome, one and all. So let's continue our discussion on the human rights aspect, the main topic of the seminar. I hope the resource persons for the valedictory session will enlighten us and lead us to our next academic adventure. Thank you and welcome one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for welcoming all our esteemed guests present here today. I now request Dr. Satish Gowda N, Senior Assistant Professor, University Law College, Bangalore University, and coordinator of this workshop to deliver the report of the two-day international virtual workshop.
Thank you, Niharika. Good evening, all. Distinguished guests, faculty members, professionals, friends from civil societies, media, students, and ladies and gentlemen. On this momentous occasion of the two-day international virtual workshop, I extend my warm welcome to all the dignitaries and participants in this august gathering. I am delighted to have the opportunity to read today's brief report of intellectual discourse of International Virtual Workshop on Protection of Human Rights during pandemic. In the inauguration ceremony, Honorable Mr. Justice Dr. Shivraj B. Patil sir emphasized upon the human rights violation of the frontline warriors and building up a new jurisprudence against the violations. The chief guest professor Dr. B.P. Kutino sir delineated about the right to dignity of the dead due to COVID-19, domestic violence, police atrocities, and the problems of elder. This was followed by the address by Professor Dr. Venkatrao sir, who emphasized on the digital alienation and digital toxification, right to health for non-COVID-19 patients, and online education. Professor Dr. P. Ishwar Bhatt sir rightly emphasized on human rights defenders. He emphasized that absence of rights of non-profit organization, medical doctors, and other medical professionals. Finally, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Dr. K.R. Venugopal, Bangalore University, in his presidential address mentioned that virtual has become real, social distancing is the new closeness, digitalization is the new normal, there should be blended approach between online and offline methodologies. It may code proceeding, education, etc. Further, he emphasized the means by which measures can be adopted to adjust to the new normal and also analyze the way to battle digital toxification. Renowned speakers addressed the gathering in the various technical sessions. In the first session, Professor Dr. K.C. Sunny sir analyzed the protection of socio-economic rights, including proper establishment of public health care system and right to education. His address was followed by Barrister Shamim Haider Patauri, Member of Parliament, Bangladesh, who emphasized on the judicial activism and other human rights violations. He analyzed the need to establish international cooperation to procure the right to vaccine. Professor Dr. C. Basuraj, the next speaker, emphasized on the relation between human rights and social justice and analyzed the right to life and right to health as an important human right. The last speaker of the session, Professor T. Ramakrishna sir, provided an explanation about the patent of drugs during pandemic, deliberating on legal system and complying the balance of patent with the public interest and the responses of various countries during pandemic with regard to patents. Session 2 began with the address by Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, who spoke about right to health on a national perspective and gave us direction for further conduct. It was followed by the address of Professor Dr. M.R.K. Prasad, who spoke about several innovative ways in which a law school student or clinic could take initiative as countermeasures. Professor Dr. Jeet Singh Man further intrigued the audience by addressing the rights of the laborers and responsibility of state to fulfill it and spoke about requirement of labor law. The session was concluded by address of Sri Mohan Katirki sir, who spoke about human rights to water during unprecedented situation with main focus on government responsibility towards fulfilling the basic requirements. The third session began with the insightful address by Professor Dr. T.R. Subramania. In his address, he traced the evolution and development of international law and how human rights have been impacted along the way. Professor G.B. Reddy analyzed the human rights in consonance with the various fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution of India. Right to education, health, and dignity inter alia were discussed. This was followed by the address of Dr. P. Puneet, who tackled with the topic of invoking penal laws for tackling COVID-19, human rights concern. He addressed various provisions of IPC and the punishment acute. The third session was concluded by the address by Dr. Anish V. Pillai, who addressed the topic importance of international human rights during pandemic. He drew a comprehensive nexus between international law and human rights laws have developed within the sphere of this field. In the fourth and final session of the workshop, Professor Dr. David Ambrose chaired the session and addressed the audience on the role of human rights and different generations of human rights. This was followed by the address of Professor Dr. C.S. Patil sir, who analyzed the protection of human rights professionals during the pandemic, and exhaustive interpretation of human rights laws and atrocities committed on professionals was provided. The address was insightful. Professor Dr. Bismi Gopalakrishnan then addressed a key topic on human right to health during pandemic. In the address, the need of comprehensive healthcare scheme and ease of accessibility of these facilities was stressed upon. The session was concluded by Professor Dr. M. Vishvanath, who addressed human rights and state rights with a nexus to the lockdown experience. The address comprehensively analyzed the rights of various stakeholders that have been questioned post-imposition of the lockdown. I hope all the sessions were academic, meaningful, and enriched the knowledge of all the participants. Thank you for your patience and attending all the sessions. Namaste.
Thank you so much, sir, for that report. Human rights is a very broad subject with a lot of intricacies linking human life and the society. The esteemed speakers who have graced this event systematically and proficiently elaborated upon various key aspects of human rights and the law governing the same, with special emphasis on the current pandemic. I now request the participants to share their experiences and thoughts about the workshop. I first invite Dr. Murigi K. Charles, so I hope I have pronounced that right, a postdoctoral candidate from Kenya. So you may now please share your experience in this virtual workshop with the audience.
Yes, thank you very much. This is Dr. Murigi K. Charles, postgraduate, postdoctoral candidates. I'm from Kenya, and I've been part of this international virtual workshop on protection of human rights, especially during a time like this, the time of this pandemic. And I'm very, very delighted and very happy for what I have been hearing for the last 2 days. Especially, my special thanks goes to the Professor Dr. Suresh V. Nandagoda, the principal ULC, Professor Dr. N. Dasharath, Chairman Department of Studies in Law and Dean Faculty of Law, Professor Dr. V. Sudesh, the former principal and Dean, University Law College, and Dr. Satish Gowda, Senior Assistant Professor and the coordinator of this program, and the rest of my dear professors in the same university, Dr. Jyoti Vishvanath, Senior Assistant Professor, Dr. L. Chandrakant, Senior Assistant Professor. From the very onset of this workshop, it has been a very, very exposing workshop to a greater extent, where there has been very great insight that has been thrown into how human rights have been linked, and they ought to be protected, from various perspectives in life. I want to appreciate the organizers for gracing the occasion with such wonderful and eminent resource persons that have been very, very, very candid in elaborating on various aspects of human rights in respect to labor law, constitution law, and intellectual property rights. Resource persons like Professor Dr. K.C. Soni, Barrister Shamil Ainda, who from Bangladesh has been, who is a member of parliament, and it has been indeed, even today itself, with what we have learned. It is my sincere wish, and I look forward as somebody who has been in this profession of law, to be part of many other workshops like this that could be organized by University Law College, Bangalore. And I want to appreciate each and every one of my dear colleagues for preparing and planning for such a workshop like this. In fact, it has been academically insightful and educative in various aspects, especially when we have to talk about human rights in such a time like this during this pandemic. We've been exposed to various aspects of how these human rights have been affected, maybe especially in reference to labor law, when we've been seeing how laborers, how laborers have been moving from one place to another, and with a lot of challenges. And at the same time, human rights in relation to children, the corona warriors, and in aspect of judicial activism, and how they are connected with human rights, and also human rights in respect of social justice. In fact, it has been very, and I'm privileged. I'm really thankful that I was privileged to be part of this workshop. And I just want to, I don't want to take much of the time. I just want to wish, and I pray that such many more workshops like this will be. I'll be able to see them and be able to participate with them from the very University Law College that I treasure so much. So thank you very much, and I want to appreciate each and every one of those that have been participating, and have also participated like me. And I think with what I have learned, there is so much that I've been awakened to, especially when it comes to various aspects in life, and especially the society where we seems to be living now, which seems to be, we are getting into a new normal, and it's kind of given me a light of what need. Actually, sometimes you may be thinking that all is well when you need really to be provoked. It has been a thought-provoking workshop, and I'm very, very sincerely thankful. Thank you very much. I hand it over back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for those wonderful words. We will definitely try to organize more such workshops in the future. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Diganta Bishwas. Secretary, Postgraduate Council from West Bengal. Sir, you may please share your experiences at this workshop with us.
Yes, thank you. I like to say that I am a privileged person to be a part of this seminar, workshop. Since in last 2 days, I have learned so many things that different aspects of human rights, which particularly link to the livelihood, health, and also the right to medication, where medicine is also a part of that. And I heartfully thank all the persons involved in the process of organizing this seminar, from Professor Nadgowda, Professor Suresh, Professor Satish Gowda sir, Professor Jyoti Bhakre sir, Jyoti Bhakre ma'am, and so many other people who are involved into that process. It is really a very good opportunity for me to be a part of this program, because in this current situation, we know we are very fast advancing to the second or third position as far as the number of victims in the coronavirus, and our economy and different aspects have been very much affected. Most of all, the people who belonging to the economically weaker section, they are suffering a lot, since we have seen in last few days, last 2-3 months, that so many people have been died because of maybe run over of the vehicle, and they are very much finding difficulty in transportation and all. And another very important thing is that there is no specific policy on the part of the government as to who has to fix the responsibility to share the task as to who to transport and what measures to be taken centrally. So apart from all the discussions, what I have learned is different aspects of human rights, which are very much linked to the ensuring the right of the people who are, economically weaker section, particularly, who are mostly affected. So I would like to thank the University Law College faculty members and the organizers for in taking the initiative to organize such a program. And I hope I will be able to be part of your any program in future. And I want University Law College is in a position to organize such a nice programs with all the valuable speakers. I have learned a lot. Thank you, all the organizers of the University Law College, Bangalore. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of encouragement. I now invite Aarti Ashok, Assistant Professor, School of Legal Studies, Cochin University. Ma'am, you have the floor. You may please speak for just a minute and give your feedback on how you felt this experience was.
Thank you for giving me a chance to be part of this. A warm good evening to all the participants, the organizers, and the dignitaries. I should take this chance to say thank you as well as congratulations to the ULC team. The program has been great. Especially my background is intellectual property, and I have a lot of takeaways from this program, particularly Ramakrishnan sir's lecture and Bismi ma'am's talk. Apart from that, it was highly thought-provoking, particularly the session on right to water, which has exposed me to those issues. So I would like to take this opportunity to say a huge thanks, and also to say that it is that and hope that ULC Bangalore will again conduct such programs so that right to education for people like me will not be hampered. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those words of encouragement. I now invite Ms. Rashmi R, Faculty, KLE Society Law College from Bengaluru, to kindly share her experience with us. Ms. Rashmi R.
Rashmi, please unmute. Unmute, Rashmi. Rashmi, please unmute. It's not audible. Please unmute. Rashmi?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please proceed.
Yes, sir. So sorry. Good evening, everyone. The distinguished dignitaries, academicians, students. I, Rashmi, faculty, KSLU Society's Law College, Bangalore. And the past 2 days I've been attending this international webinar. And these 2 days have been like back to ULC, listening to all my beloved teachers at ULC, and also the distinguished resource persons across the globe. Probably an unfortunate situation caused a lot of positive vibes we have been gaining from this 2 days international webinar, wherein we could hear more than 25 plus resource persons giving their what's it called, intellectual deliberations on various issues and perspectives of human rights. This webinar provided a very valuable forum for academicians, students, and practitioners. And I feel that this webinar, the level of webinar and the diversity of discussions which was made in this webinar was outstanding. It was a very right mix of issues which it involved, various perspectives of human rights and resource persons across the globe. And also it was a very timely conceptualized topic and very thought-provoking and thoughtfully made concept. And this webinar has made us like, though it is a virtual webinar, it is not less than any physical webinar which was organized. And with these words, and I would thank all the organizers of this international webinar for taking such efforts, being for organizing this and bringing people across the globe, and also getting the resource persons across the nation, and making the webinar a very stimulating one. And I would look forward for such international webinars from ULC. And congratulations for ULC team, the principal Nagowda sir, Sudesh sir, Dashrath sir, Satish Gowda sir, Jyoti ma'am, Chandrakanti ma'am, each and everyone hosting this international webinar. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those encouraging words. Now let us begin by introducing the guests for the event. I consider it my privilege and honor to introduce Dr. Danixia Cuevas, the keynote speaker for this valedictory ceremony. Dr. Cuevas is a professor at Miami-Dade College and teaches paralegal and legal courses. Dr. Cuevas served as a Fulbright Scholar to India for 2013 and 14, where she taught an advanced contracts law class at National Law University, located in New Delhi. She received 2 endowed teaching chairs for outstanding teaching excellence at MDC for the years 2016 and 2007. In 2017, Dr. Cuevas was appointed as a Fulbright Scholar Alumni Ambassador. Dr. Cuevas was a Fulbright Specialist to India in 2019, teaching faculty workshops for technology and law. Dr. Cuevas practiced law for legal services with a focus on poverty and family law-related issues. Additionally, she also worked with Aspira, an organization dedicated to empowering underserved children to continue their education. She has authored several articles in both national and international peer-reviewed journals regarding service learning, the use of paralegals to increase access to justice, and collaborative teaching pedagogy. Dr. Cuevas is highly distinguished within the legal fraternity. I now invite her to render the valedictory address.
Thank you so much. I've done an amazing job with the introduction. I really appreciate that. I'm just going to share my screen a moment and then I will start if that's okay. I just want to put my presentation up. And okay, so I want to formally say good morning, namaste. And as we say, I'm sitting in Miami, South Florida, and here we say buenos dias, which means good morning in Spanish. I'd like to thank Dr. Satish Gowda for extending such a wonderful invitation for me to participate in this International Human Rights webinar. Dr. Satish Gowda and I met in 2016 at a conference in South India. It was an international conference sponsored by Dr. Sunny, who spoke yesterday. So thank you, Dr. Satish Gowda, for inviting me. Thank you to Bangalore University for hosting this webinar, for my esteemed colleagues who are on the panel, for the professors that have participated, the participants. And I know that yesterday Dr. Sunny spoke, so I say hello to him. Dr. Manoj Singha from India Law Institute, I've also spoken there, and Dr. Mann from National Law University in Delhi. So good morning to everybody. And actually it's very early here in Miami. It's about 8:30 in the morning. Some of my Miami-Dade college students are online as well. So good morning to them. Thank you for having me. So today I'm going to talk to you about human rights in America and the issues that are happening here. And during the course of that conversation, you will see that there are many parallels because this pandemic is affecting all of us globally. And usually I like to have a very interactive session. It's a little different this morning, so I can only invite you to think about a few things. And my first question to everybody who's listening today is, what is the human rights issue that is the most pressing concern in your community, wherever you may be? India is a huge country. Every state is very different, different languages, different traditions, different norms. Some states are denser than others. So think about your local community and think about what is the human rights issue that is of most pressing concern. I just want to say something before I get started quickly. On the one hand, I'm very sad that I'm not there in person because this would have been my 11th time in India. I've been to India now 10 times. I've lived there, and I consider India to be my adopted country. So I'm sorry that I'm not able to participate in person. I look forward to an opportunity to do that in the future. Okay, so let me talk about what we will cover today. We're going to talk about healthcare and how this pandemic has impacted healthcare. We're going to talk about poverty issues. We also will talk about issues related to gender, education, and race. And lastly, access to justice. So these are the issues that we will talk about today. Now, I want to start with healthcare because that is the most pressing concern globally due to COVID-19. As of this morning, I'm just going to open this link quickly. As of this morning, to show you, according to the Center for Disease Control in America, we have over 3 million cases of COVID-19. And this map will show you some of the hotspots. I'm currently in Miami, so I'm down here in this part of America. We are quickly becoming an epicenter for this virus. Texas is the same, California, but in Florida, the numbers are growing exponentially. And in Dade County, where I live in Miami-Dade County, it's one of the worst in the state of Florida. But when we talk about COVID, we need to talk about the disproportionate impact that COVID is having in the African-American community in America. In fact, in the African-American community in America, African-Americans are twice as likely to get COVID than the general population. And in a minute, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about some statistics, but in terms of healthcare in general, what COVID is doing is putting a strain on our healthcare system. We have hospitals in America that are running out of PPE equipment. We have hospitals in America that don't have enough ventilators. We have doctors and nurses that are overwhelmed with the number of cases. And of people suffering from COVID, entering the hospitals. India has a similar issue. India's healthcare system is overwhelmed right now with the cases of COVID. In India, of course, you have private hospitals that are expensive. And so some people, the common person, may not be able to afford healthcare in a private hospital, meaning that they have to go to a government hospital, which is overrun by the cases of COVID, similar to what's happening here in America. So let's talk about some of the underlying conditions as to why African Americans are suffering so much from COVID. Well, first of all, in America, African Americans make up 13% of the population in America, but 34% of the cases of COVID. Now, there are some reasons for that. Underlying healthcare conditions like diabetes, blood pressure, socioeconomic conditions, a disproportionate number of African Americans living in low-income households below the poverty line in America. Some of these households have a lack of education. Also, they have a lot of workers from these families are what are considered essential workers. So many of us that are considered to be white collar workers, professors and whatnot, and other people, we're able to work remotely, but we have essential workers across the globe that are not able to do that. People who work in grocery stores, people who work in public transportation, people who work as janitors, people who work as chefs in restaurants and hospitals. And then also with a lot of the ethnic communities here in America, we have multi-generational households, which makes it difficult to social distance. If you live in a household, a small household with 5, 7, 8 family members, including perhaps grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins, that's not uncommon in ethnic communities that you have multi-generational households. India is the same, you have multi-generational households. We have similar instances here in America with ethnic backgrounds. It makes it very difficult to social distance, makes it difficult to quarantine under those circumstances. The other thing that I want to talk about in terms of statistics is that when we look at this graph, we see, for example, that in Chicago, there are 30% of people are African American, but 69% are suffering from COVID. When you look at Louisiana, 32% are African American, but 70% are victims of COVID-19. So again, we see across the board this disproportionate number of incidents of COVID-19 in the African American community in America. I now want to talk about the criminal justice system. And I want to say, I'm talking about these things in a very kind of brief way because I have a time limit. So I keep that in mind. But in terms of the criminal justice system, we have a huge impact of COVID on our prison system, our detention centers. We have unsanitary conditions, unhygienic, there's no hygiene, you can't social distance. People are in cramped, overcrowded conditions. In fact, this morning, I'll open this link. This morning, there was an article that came out actually late yesterday afternoon in NPR News. California is about to release 8,000 prisoners due to the coronavirus. And that's because they are reporting almost 6,000 cases amongst their inmates and almost 1,300 employees in California that work for the correction system have tested positive for COVID-19. It's so we're having this issue in our prison system in America, but let's talk about India. In late March of this year, the Supreme Court of India issued this ruling to take into account the overcrowding of the prisons in India, releasing prisoners in India. India has about 1,339 prisons in India, and they're at 117% capacity. So like America, India is facing this issue where we have overcrowding and we're having to release some prisoners to relieve some of that overcrowding. All right, the other thing I want to talk about is how COVID-19 is affecting the detention centers in America with migrants. So America has detention centers where they hold people that are pending resolution of their immigration cases, or they have a deportation order. And actually, the New York Times just did an expose, a really good expose. I'm just going to open the link about how ICE, which is our enforcement agency in America, has contributed to this problem. Well, the video is not loading right now, but basically what happened was that since March, ICE has deported 40,000 detainees all over the world, including India, all over Latin America, Haiti, I mean, over 138 countries around the world. But in this particular expose, they interview an Indian man who was deported back to India, and he talked about the conditions of the detention center in America. And they spoke to detainees who were deported to Guatemala, to El Salvador, to Haiti, the deplorable conditions under which they were held, no hygiene. If they felt sick, they were not provided health care. They were not provided any medical attention. They were overcrowded. And so as America deported these individuals that had tested positive for this virus, we were also deporting this virus all over the world. And those statistics are just from March to June 20th. So that's a pretty startling statistic within a short amount of time. All right, so the other issue is, other than the African-American community, the other, sadly, the other community that is being decimated in America by COVID-19 is the Native American community. They have a very high rate of infection. In fact, this morning I was reading that 8,000 Native Americans have tested positive for COVID as of this morning. In New Mexico, they're 9% of the population, but over 60% of Native Americans have COVID. When you look at New York State, about 1,890, almost 2,000 Americans of 100,000 have COVID. But in the Native American community, that's almost 3,000 of every 100,000 people in America that have COVID. So when we talk about Native Americans, we need to talk a little bit more about why they're suffering so much from COVID. First of all, we have issues with the Native American community in America. It's a very poor community. In fact, they don't have a tax base. Their tax base comes from casinos, but casinos, not every Native American tribe has a casino, and the ones that do, the casinos have been closed due to COVID. And so that impacts their economic base. They have blood pressure issues, high diabetes, no healthcare facilities on Native American land, on Native American tribal communities, very poor, high rates of poverty. And some of these communities have no running water in their households. So these are all of the kinds of things that lead to a public health issue exacerbated by COVID-19, created a disproportionate impact on the Native American community in America. The next community that I want to talk about are Latin Americans. I am Latin Americans. In fact, I was born in Puerto Rico, so I am Puerto Rican American, and live in Miami, which has a very, very large Latino population. But when we look at Latinos in America, we're almost 19% of the population. But we have a very high percentage of COVID-19. So we have 1/4 of the population in Florida, but 2/5 of our cases are COVID-19. When we look at this graph here, we look at how it's impacting the white community, the African-American community, and the Latino community. In some states in America, the Latino community has 4 times more incidence of COVID-19 than the mainstream community. All right, so talking a little bit more about Latinos in America, I use this picture. It has different images of the Latin American community in America. And we're very diverse because we're from every part of Latin America, like the Caribbean, like where I'm from, Puerto Rico. We have in Miami a lot of Cubans, a lot of people from Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in this particular slide, I want to talk about the impact on the essential workers. Wait, sorry, I'm going back here. So when we're talking about the Latino community, it's being exacerbated because it's impacting the Latinos who work in the farms. A lot of the migrant workers in the farms who get our fruits and vegetables that we eat are Latinos. In fact, in Miami, we have the Everglades. In Homestead, we have a very large Mexican and South American population. They work the farms. We have a lot of factory workers, meat processing plants that have been closed due to COVID-19, and we have a large undocumented population. So these factors, plus poverty, socioeconomic factors, lack of healthcare, et cetera, are making this impact worse. Now, I want to talk about Florida in particular, because in Florida, we have an issue with the migrant community being decimated by COVID-19 and the farm workers in Florida. But recently in June of this year, the governor of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he made a statement and he blamed COVID-19 on the farm workers, on the Latino community in Florida. He said that farm workers and construction workers are spreading the virus because they live in overcrowded conditions and they are transported in vans and cars where they're packed very closely together. So this has led to a backlash against the governor for blaming COVID-19 on the Latino community, the farm workers in Florida. In fact, research shows that that is not in fact the case, and the virus continues to spread in Florida. Actually, statistically speaking, what research is indicating that the virus is spreading here because of young people. No offense to young people, but we've reopened in Florida, and right now research is indicating that a lot of it is being spread by the young people in Florida, maybe having a little bit too much fun. The other thing that we need to look at are issues of poverty. And this is a systemic issue across the globe. We need to look at who's an essential worker, a non-essential worker, people who work in the grocery stores and things like that, low-income families being disproportionately impacted by this, and the homeless population. In this photo, there is a homeless woman being treated by a nurse. So we have to take care of the most vulnerable members of our community, whether they be ethnic minorities, whether they be the homeless community, whether they be those that suffer from mental health issues. This pandemic has showed us that we are responsible collectively as a citizenry, particularly in an engaged democracy, to take care of those most vulnerable. The other thing that we're facing in America are issues related to gender. And this is not unique to America. I'm just using America as an example, but we need to look at issues of domestic violence. Research shows that the incidence of domestic violence have increased because of COVID-19. People are out of jobs, people are stuck at home. There are other stress factors in the family, substance abuse, mental health issues. And so we have people suffering in silence at home. They cannot access the legal system. They are stuck with their abuser. And it's not just women, it's children also that perhaps are victims of sexual abuse. And this abuse continues in their household during COVID-19. The other issue is daycare. So we have a lot of working mothers, like many countries around the world. Now we're stuck at home, and women bear the brunt of taking care of, I don't want to say bearing the brunt. I think it's an important job to raise children. I have a daughter myself who's getting ready to go to college. It's been my favorite job, actually. But disproportionately, women take care of the home. We cook, we clean, we manage the household. And so now women are working from home and taking care of children in some case, very, very young children who are being educated at home. So there's a higher stress level. There's more for women to juggle. And so we're having a greater impact on women in that regard. And I don't mean to exclude men, because there are men who help women as well. But statistically and traditionally, women have taken on the caretaking role of their children. We have cases of pregnancy discrimination. We have issues of job instability affecting women. In fact, in my next slide, the New York Times did an expose of a woman who got fired. This just appeared this week. She has 2 children. She has a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. She got fired because on her conference calls, the kids were around her and they were being too noisy, and the company fired her because the kids were making too much noise. And this is an example of what life is like for millions of women across the globe and in America, working, raising children, taking care of the household, and just trying to juggle and maintain a job as well. Now let's briefly talk about education. This is a whole other issue that's being impacted by COVID-19. We all had to rush to online education due to COVID-19. Now, you know, when we talk about education, I put here K through 12 in America, but it's higher education, it's law schools, it's all kinds of education, right? I myself have been fortunate. I've been teaching online for 15 years. And in America, it's quite common to not only be fully online, to be hybrid, but to be face-to-face, a combination of all 3. In that sense, it may have been a little easier for me to rush to go online, so to speak. But what about people who have not done that before? What is our responsibility to train teachers to be able to teach online? To provide engaging, interactive lessons for our students. This morning, I'm what I call a talking head. That is not my comfort zone. That is not part of my teaching paradigm. In fact, my lectures are, it's very small amount of lectures, mostly interactive, and being able to use technology to do that. But, you know, we have issues of students that don't have computers, students that don't have access to the internet. We're leaving millions of kids behind because they lack this basic human right, which is a right to education, which now includes a computer and access to the internet. So the question becomes, what can we do about that? What can we do as educators, as people in a democracy to alleviate some of these concerns? I invite you to think about that. I have some ideas which I'll share, but I'll ask you to please think about that. I'll use Miami-Dade College, that's my institution, as an example. When this all happened, Miami-Dade College actually gave our students laptops. So they would have computers at home. A lot of our students can't always afford a computer, so they were distributed to our students. Also, in America, we have large cable companies, and there was like a special agreement made to provide internet service to our students, paid for by our college as well. But when you're talking about a country like India that is vast, with a large rural population, where you have people that don't have access, millions of people don't have access to the internet, what can India do? Well, there are lots of different things that potentially can be done, including negotiating agreements with providers to provide services to areas, hotspots, doing a contract perhaps, or an agreement with private entity who adopts a certain number of students from a rural area of India, or even not, maybe that's not so rural, just to give them internet access. Create lesson plans that are mobile friendly as well, that can be done. So if a student doesn't have a computer, they're able to use their phone to do their lessons. And so we're having to think outside of the box and look at ways that we can create things. I'll just show you this quickly. This is MDC CARES. The federal government in America recently passed the CARES Act, and this is on our website. Miami-Dade College is actually one of the largest colleges in America. We have about 120,000 students. I know that sounds small, but we're one of the largest colleges in this country. And right now, Miami-Dade College is investing in things like kickstarting your career. So they're retraining people to get jobs in this workforce because this economy has been decimated, upskilling people, helping them with resumes, how to enhance their skill set so that they can get jobs, and providing scholarships to students so that they can attend college for free right now under this pandemic. So these are the kinds of things that educational institutions can do to reach out to the more vulnerable communities in our backyard, so to speak, wherever they may be. And then I want to talk about also race in America. When we talk about race in America, oh, that's a big one. Recently, we had the death of George Floyd. He was, I mean, it's been reported all over the world. He was arrested for an incident in Minnesota, and a police officer put his knee on his neck. And at least 20 times, George Floyd said, "I can't breathe." It led to his death. This sparked mass protests in America. And, you know, it's like this pandemic has lit a fuse into what are the underlying issues in America, but also highlights some of these issues, including these mass protests. We have to do that in an engaged democracy. And there were people that had masks. There were some people that were saying, oh, you know, and you can't have these kind of protests in a pandemic. It's going to spread the virus. Actually, the virus, the numbers are going up, but statistically, research is not showing that it was because of these protests. So we have to look at race issues and how they're being impacted in a pandemic, but also our Asian community in America. We have increased incidents of verbal harassment and hate crimes against the Asian communities. We have rhetoric coming from the national level calling this a kung fu virus. And this has trickled down to other sectors and members of American society who are scapegoating an entire ethnic community in America because of this pandemic. Again, inviting us to look at what we can do as academicians, as lawyers, as advocates, as law professors to address these issues in our respective communities and institutions, because these are major issues in America. I'm getting close to the end of my presentation, and I want to talk about access to justice. We're lawyers, we're professors, we're academicians, we're scholars. I think we are in a unique position to change this landscape in this pandemic. In America, the ABA came out with a task force specifically on how to deal with access to justice issues, the court system during this pandemic. I'm not going to take time to go over the details of that, but we need to look at things like virtual courts. We're doing virtual courts in America. In fact, my best friend in New York City just had her first virtual hearing yesterday in New York City. But India's doing the same. India has begun creating virtual courts. We need to continue looking at virtual courts, virtual hearings, so that we continue to provide due process, so that we continue to ensure the rights of the most vulnerable members of our community by giving them access to the justice system. But it's beyond the court system, and it's beyond the court system and that structure and the judiciary. We need to look at law schools. We need to look at how we educate people in America and how people are educated in India in law schools. So we need to think outside of the box. India now just created its first virtual law school run by Dr. Nachiketa Mittal. And that's a different way of doing things, inviting students to continue their legal education. In America, we're having virtual classes as well, but also training the trainers, training the professors, professional development programs to train professors on how to better educate others during this pandemic and use what we're using now, technology, to engage our students, to have them interact with us, to motivate them, to inspire them, and to have them take up the mantle of ensuring access to justice. Because it is during this pandemic that we have a unique role to play to help others in access to justice. And this is actually my last slide because I've talked a little bit about what we're doing. I want to talk about leadership. It's very important that we have good leadership during this pandemic. And I've chosen Governor Cuomo because New York City was the epicenter in America of this pandemic. And Governor Cuomo took the lead. Governor Cuomo did a strict shutdown of New York State. They're just opening up now in a very small scale. Their hospitals were overrun, and he provided steady leadership based on science, based on facts, based on logic, based on consulting with healthcare experts, with an underlying tone of compassion, empathy for those that have died, for those that are suffering, and for those that are the most vulnerable. In New York City, the homeless population is huge. People taking subways. I've lived in New York City. I know what New York City's like. And Governor Cuomo led his state through this pandemic, and the numbers are low now. Whereas in other states, including mine, they're just going up and up and up and up and up. So leadership, we need good leadership as well. So in my closing, what I'd like to invite us to do is to invite all of you to think about what is your unique role as a professor, as a law student, as an educator. What can you do to improve the human rights issues that you're facing at home and in your community? This pandemic is a call to action for us to address that human rights needs, for us to work on access to justice issues, for us as educators to work better within this new paradigm, to train our students to continue to provide services to those that are in the most need. And I want to end with this thought that I really believe that in this unique time that we're living, we need to chart a new path for global collaboration. We need to chart a new path for thinking outside of the box. And we really need to break down global walls. We should not be building walls because we're in this together. This pandemic is affecting everybody in the world. A wall is not going to keep this pandemic out. A wall is not going to protect us. So we need to break down those walls, and we need to work together as we are here this morning. Thank you very much for listening to me today.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cuevas, for that very extensive and comprehensive presentation. The insights on the impact of coronavirus in America was truly very comprehensive. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the participants present here when I say that we're truly grateful to learn something more and something new beyond geographic boundaries. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Thank you, ma'am, for being here. I now consider it my privilege to introduce the next chief guest for this event, Professor Dr. Sudhir Krishnaswamy. Professor Krishnaswamy is the Vice Chancellor of NLSIU Bangalore. He teaches political philosophy and politics in India, law and governance, and legal system reform. He also serves as the Director of Distance Education Department at NLSIU. Professor Krishnaswamy's area of interest are constitutional law, administrative law, property law, and legal system reform. He has published a book on constitutionalism, namely Democracy and Constitutionalism in India. Sir has also authored several articles, journal chapters, and conference papers. I now invite Professor Dr. Krishnaswamy to address the gathering.
Thank you, Niharika, and good evening to all the speakers and the guests at this workshop. Thank you for the invitation to be the chief guest at the valedictory ceremony of this workshop on the protection of human rights during the COVID pandemic. I readily agreed as soon as I received an invitation from the principal, Professor Suresh Naragowda, as it is critical to gather intellectual conversations around the impact of the COVID pandemic. This is an epochal event, the consequences of which will be felt for decades to come. And it's crucial that we begin that exercise of reckoning with the effects of this pandemic. Further, I hope to build stronger academic linkages between ULC and NLS, their neighboring institutions in the city of Bangalore, and this is an opportunity to begin that process. So may I thank the ULC faculty colleagues for initiating this conversation and congratulate them and the students for putting this event together. In a spirit of collaboration, may I invite those of you students, undergraduate students in this audience, to look at an essay competition on an almost identical topic, which we have advertised on our website that you might like to participate in. This essay competition is in the name of H.M. Sirvai, who many of you know was a leading constitutional commentator. I look forward to catching up with the presentations on the technical sessions where some of these issues have been considered in depth. I suspect that as being the chief guest at this event, my comments, I'd like to stick to a single issue. And this is an issue that Professor Cuevas referred to when she spoke about access to justice concerns. I'm going to modify and in some ways emphasize the issue and name it in this way. I think that the COVID pandemic has sparked a rule of law crisis in India. And let me describe what I mean. Given a wider shutdown of the society and the economy, it is not surprising that the legal system has come to a grounding halt. While the lower courts and the appellate courts shut down entirely at the start of the pandemic in April, they have developed and opened along different trajectories since those early days. It's important to note that in the 70 years of the Indian Republic, the courts have not been shut for as long a period as they have in the last few months. And this should alert us to the special circumstances that we are placed in. However, academic and public criticisms of the court shutdown has primarily focused on the role of the Supreme Court and the High Courts. Critics have complained about the failure of the courts to entertain or to adequately address the human catastrophe that has unfolded over this period. Others have argued that the exceptional circumstances that we find ourselves in are incapable of judicial resolution. In this short address, I will not attempt to reconcile these divergent views. Instead, I will point out that no one expects the Supreme Court of the United States or the Constitutional Court of Germany to intervene in the COVID crisis. So it appears that these criticisms of the Supreme Court and the High Courts are a result in India of their self-assumed expansive role. Maybe the COVID crisis will provoke a fundamental realignment of the relationship between various state institutions in India and a partial redefinition of the role of the appellate courts. However, in my view, the real rule of law crisis lies elsewhere. Less than 1% of the Indian population is exposed directly to the Supreme Court, and 2 to 3% of the population engages with the High Courts. Significantly, almost 30% of the population engages the lower courts. The COVID pandemic has resulted in an almost complete shutdown of the lower court system. This shutdown began at different times in various states, but at the moment, these courts remain closed in almost all states with no immediate prospect or plan for reopening. The profound impact of this shutdown on economic, social, and legal relations in India is yet to be recognized or estimated. It is likely to have long-run consequences for the rule of law in India. Unless we come to terms with this crisis and respond appropriately and quickly, we risk long-term damage to the Indian legal system and the foundations of the Republic. Luckily, the COVID pandemic realigns incentives across the legal ecosystem in a way that can lead to sustainable and widespread reform. A majority of lawyers are being pushed into economic distress without adequate professional income arising from the court shutdown. So they have, at this point, a remarkable incentive to adapt to new arrangements. For those of us who know the role of lawyers in Indian legal system reform history, we would have to recognize that the indifference or active resistance of lawyers has prevented legal reform in decades past. Judges and court officials are deeply concerned about being exposed to the COVID pandemic, and hence they are compelled to adopt new court management techniques and technologies to contain this risk. Finally, clients who work from home or who are on furloughs or out of a job have a special keenness in resolving pending cases in this period. This remarkable realignment of incentives in the Indian legal ecosystem may give us hope and enthusiasm to push for reform. So in these conditions, it's imperative to engage with lower court reform that has the prospect of immediate and affordable success. I will conclude today with a brief sketch of two strategies that can contribute to this success. First, the adoption of appropriate technology. And here I want to emphasize first that teleconferencing rather than video conferencing has a chance of adoption and success in India. Spotty adoption of video conferencing technologies by the high courts and the Supreme Court should convince participants of the need to revisit the need for video conferencing at all. Remarkably, the US Supreme Court in recent hearings has relied on teleconferencing as the method of oral argument. It needs no further explanation to suggest why in Indian social and technological conditions, teleconferencing has the possibility of widespread adoption. Coupled with the authentication of lawyers and maybe clients using registered phone numbers, a teleconferencing can be the pathway to a rapid adoption of virtual courts. Ideally, when this conferencing technology is adopted, it should be combined with a strong digital filing system. And luckily, off-the-shelf products can satisfy this need today. The tendency to develop bespoke designed virtual courts across India has hampered adoption, and we need to move away from that choice. So that was my first point, appropriate technology. Second, is the adoption of case management techniques. Now, there is a long history of proposals to reduce listing of cases, list fewer cases, have fixed hearing schedules, and limit time periods for oral argument. These policy proposals are quite old. I mean, there's nothing remarkable or new, and frankly, existing rules, both the statutory law as well as court rules, provide for these initiatives. But today, I'm going to suggest there's a historic opportunity to implement these proposals. The COVID pandemic has resulted in this remarkable realignment of stakeholders' incentives that makes these reforms necessary. It has also provoked a rule of law crisis that demands immediate attention. If these two accidental, critical components have coincided in this period of time, it's an opportunity we cannot miss. I conclude today by emphasizing that the effects of the COVID pandemic are going to be with us, at the very least, as educators and as legal professionals for a few years, if not longer. How we adapt and respond to this crisis will determine the future of the rule of law in the Indian Republic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for providing your analysis on the roles played by the court during the pandemic and the need for the shift in focus to pay attention to the rule of law in India and the imperativeness for reform within the judicial system. Thank you so much for that enlightenment. I now welcome the next guest for the event. The guest of honor for this ceremony, Shri A.S. Ponnanna. Shri Sir is a senior advocate practicing in the High Court of Karnataka and the former Additional Advocate General, Government of Karnataka. He is a versatile advocate and has left a remarkable mark in the legal domain within the state of Karnataka. I now request Shri A.S. Ponnanna to address the gathering.
Sorry about that. I'm a little digitally hampered person, so that took me a couple of minutes to set the mute microphone right. Good evening to everybody, and also the distinguished speakers. A couple of them whom I heard, Professor Sudhir, who spoke extensively on the role of the courts, which is so important in upholding human rights during this crisis, and even otherwise. So I will very quickly try and go back to how we have dealt with the pandemic as a nation, as a society, and the constitutional institutions have dealt with it only with the intent not to, as a critic, because we are all learning, and so is the administration, so is the government, so is the courts, but only for us to introspect and ensure that we deal with this better, because the way things are going and the way things are looking, I don't think we are going to finish with this pandemic even in the beginning of the next year. So certain scientific reports say that we are looking at a couple of lakhs a day in February 2021. I hope that is not true, but by the look of it, it does not look like it is going to end this year for sure. So let us introspect on how we dealt with it as a society in order to achieve better results as we go along. So as you all know that 23rd of March was the lockdown. We had on that day, I think about 100 and odd cases in the entire country. So the first question obviously is whether the lockdown was timed right. So then comes the second issue of how was the lockdown enforced. The lockdown was enforced through police machinery. Now, since we are dealing with human rights, now letting the police loose on the public who are totally unaware about the nature of the pandemic, how to deal with it, how, what are the symptoms, so many things we are all still learning. All of us are, in the process. Experts, medical experts, scientists do not know what this whole thing is about as yet, right? So to let police personnel loose on both of them, the police and the public at large, were totally unaware, at least in this country. They did not know what was happening. They did not know what the lockdown was. They did not know what the disease was. They were in the dark. And what happened thereafter was the grossest violation of human rights that you could see perhaps post-emergency. People were being beaten up on the streets. And in one case, which happened in my neighborhood, sadly, which came up all over social media, where one of them, on the next day after he is supposedly attacked the police, was shot in the leg. So we had those pictures all over. And this is how the police reacted in enforcing a lockdown, which was really in the interest of the people. So an effort made by the government to protect the people turned out to be their own downfall in that sense. And then came the third problem, which was unemployment and migrant issues, migrant labor who wanted to go back because the lockdown was imposed so suddenly. Overnight lockdown, they were here without job, without food, without shelter. So they wanted to go back. And the moment the government started the process of allowing people to travel intra-district or intra-state, there was a deluge of migrants who wanted to go back to their home, to the safety and comfort of their home. The government, administration, the executive had no clue about how to deal with this entire scenario. So we had migrant labor on the streets, not knowing what to do, no food, and the government, in a way, in the blind, absolutely looking at areas which they had never even said. There was absolutely a total lack of vision. Thereafter, the migrant issue is still a continuous problem, but then came with the medical issue, because by then we had reached numbers which, in my opinion, we should have foreseen. We did not. So we are looking at 25,000 cases in Bangalore city today, absolutely no availability of medical facilities, beds. Now they have a facility on Tumkur Road which has 10,000 beds, but if you really look at it, it's not the beds. right? It's not just giving space to sleep. You're dealing with a larger issue than that. You need medical attention. So you need doctors, you need her nurses to attend to these people. We are totally lacking in those facilities. We don't have ventilator facilities. So we have come to the third stage of this pandemic insofar as India is concerned, where the medical facilities are not sufficiently available. Then we come to the situation of the dead, right? We know it as lawyers, as students of law, as Supreme Court has also said that a decent, dignified cremation or burial is part of human rights. So it's a part of life, and Article 21, which we can see again through social media and news, that there is absolute gross violation of this requirement of law. Dead people are being now, today's papers showed dead bodies being thrown into the Ganges in Bihar. And you've seen dead bodies being just dumped with JCB and things like that. So this process from the starting point of the lockdown in the first 23rd of March to now as we stand in July has seen a total failure. And as Professor Sudhir rightly said, a greatest challenge to the rule of law. I mean, if we are in the hands of an administration which has so miserably at time and again failed, and I'm not pointing finger at any political executive because we are not in the process of a discourse in that nature, but I'm primarily saying as a society, we have failed ourselves. The administration has failed us. We have failed ourselves, and we have failed our neighbors. Basically, we have all failed each other and reached this stage. So it is a great challenge. The pandemic is one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge of the century. Although we have faced 2 world wars, I would, in a way, say that this is the biggest challenge that human society has faced in this century. So keeping that in mind and the way things are going, the human right violation is apparent, is appalling. And how do you address this? So the first institution that you can turn to was the court of law. You see, the constitutional machinery that is available to us in the country to balance violation of human rights, to ensure that the constitutional rights are upheld, are the constitutional courts. Of course, we have the Human Rights Commission, we have the Police Complaint Authority, statutory bodies in that sense, toothless, absolutely toothless, and of no use to really address an emergency situation. Courts were closed in the beginning of the lockdown. Courts were totally closed, in entirety it was closed. There was panic, nobody knew what was happening, and you could not have access to justice at all for almost 10 to 15 days, if my memory serves me right. And it was only thereafter they started with the standard operating procedures, right? So we can all sit here and point fingers and blame, but as I said in the beginning, this is only a process of introspecting to ensure that this pandemic, which we are going to deal with for the next nearly a year or more, or maybe a couple of years, we don't fail again. We don't continue to fail. Unless we check our mistakes, we will continue to fail. So what did the courts do? They started a standard operating procedures. And who are the stakeholders? The lawyers, very, very importantly, the litigants, the government, the judges, the stakeholders ought to have sat together at the time of the lockdown, which the courts did not straight away impose upon itself, and decided the standard operating procedure in the first place. Can you have a situation where not a single constitutional court in the country is functioning for almost 2 to 3 weeks? Can it be even when the emergency, the disastrous emergency was imposed in this country, we did not have a situation like that. So these are the situations. Now I will come to another issue that we are facing. As the courts reopened digitally to some extent, and then physically later on, we had a few rise in the cases in the institution itself. So we had judicial officers, we had family members of judicial officers, then we had the staff going COVID positive, which is bound to be. I mean, can anybody tell yourself that if you open the doors, you will not have COVID cases coming in? It is bound to happen. The moment the COVID-19 cases increased to about a dozen, they shut down physical courts. And today we have a situation where the digital courts are very functional. We are great. We should be very grateful to the Chief Justice for that. I mean, he has kept the Karnataka High Court at least really working to that sense, but the physical courts are totally closed. And probably all of us must agree with that situation. But my question is, was it unexpected that there will be an increase in COVID positive patients in the judicial system or in the judicial employees, staff, judges, the moment you open up? It is bound to happen. So how do you deal with it? Is it everything is being dealt with a knee-jerk reaction? There is absolutely no vision. There's absolutely no planning. 12 positive patients and you shut down the afternoon courts, and we have only morning sessions of court and only extremely emergent and urgent cases right now we are dealing with. So all I'm trying to say is the human right violations or the human right in this country has always been a big, big challenge. Various factors, including the divergent nature of this nation, the population, the kind of political executive that we have had throughout from the time of independence, all this has contributed to it. And with this pandemic, the challenge to human rights is much more greater, much more larger. And it is for academicians, for lawyers, for all of us to put our heads together and see that we don't repeat our mistakes. History does not repeat itself. And what we have done in the last 4 months must be critically examined and ensure that a newer path, a brighter path is ahead of us as we face the pandemic in its worst, even the worst condition as we go along. So we are still in the beginning, in my sense, of the pandemic. So let us introspect on what has transpired so far and ensure that access to justice and protection from police brutality or the executive brutality on the civil society and availability of medical facilities, availability of decent, dignified cremation to the dead, these are basic human rights that should be given to all of us, to every citizen of this country or every person in this country. And we all work towards that and ensure that the standard operating procedures across all the 3-4 organs of the Constitution ensure that this human right is upheld as we go along. Thank you so much. And I'm very grateful to the University Law College, my alma mater, for having called me for this valedictory function and an opportunity to hear some of the learned members of the faculty. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your analysis on how this lockdown has impacted life and livelihood and how to overcome the challenges faced during these trying times. The next distinguished dignitary for today is Shri Gautam Chand, the guest of honor for the event. Sir is a respectable advocate within the legal fraternity. He is the president of the University Law College Alumni Association. I now request Shri Gautam Chand to address the gathering.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good evening to one and all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Honorable Professor Suresh Nadagoudar, Professor J. Danixia Cuevas, Professor Sudhir Krishnaswamy, Mr. Ponnanna, Professor Sudesh, Professor Dashrath, Professor Satish Gowda, my Guru, Professor Dr. V.B. Kutino, dignitaries present, students, invitees, academicians, and friends. It is indeed a privilege to be part of this valedictory ceremony of this international virtual workshop on protection of human rights during pandemic. I am not an expert on the subject. Many experts, academicians, vice chancellors, judges, students have deliberated and spoken on the subject elaborately. However, having given me an opportunity and a limited time of 5 minutes, I would like to make use of this time and have my own observations as an advocate, practicing advocates, and having been associated with public life closely. The impact of pandemic is so severe that many nations have closed their borders. And so is the case in our country. States have closed their borders, internal district borders have been closed, and virtually restricting the movement of people. Even during emergencies, you would have seen the Kerala border was closed. Even during emergencies, they were not permitted. And subsequently, Karnataka government was persuaded to open the borders. I would like to state that in order to curb the spread of pandemic, the executive and the government has imposed several regulatory and restrictive measures, which may sometimes be considered as transgression of human rights. We are placed in an unprecedented situation, which compels the governments to take unprecedented measures, of course, with due regard to protection of human rights as far as possible. as far as possible, decisions have been taken, regulations are there on policy matter, everything looks okay, looks reasonable. Only when it comes to implementing it, because of our ineffective bureaucracy, ineffective politicians, and their incapacity to visualize the circumstances, as Mr. Ponnanna said, it became very difficult for the policy to be implemented without violating the human rights. In fact, there was, as Ponnanna said, there are gross violations of human rights. However, human rights are part of our constitution. They are part of chapter 3. And whenever there are violations of fundamental rights, there are constitutional remedies available. Definitely, this is an area of major challenge, resting enormous discretion with the executive. Whatever may be the situation, the executive and judiciary are required to safeguard the basic human rights of one and all. The violation of human rights certainly is a serious issue. Many people have recourse to, have gone to courts, NGOs, activists have knocked the doors of the courts, espousing the cause of vulnerable court, and courts have responded positively by giving appropriate directions to the executive. Next, once again, whether they have complied with the directions issued by the courts, it's very difficult. In one case, the court, Karnataka High Court, gave specific instructions to provide food items to the persons who were not provided, and for migrant workers, and who were in a containment zone. The other day, once again said, whether we will issue contempt proceedings against you. See, the bureaucracy is so, it's very difficult to explain. I don't want to use any harsh words, but ultimately it is managed by human beings who are inefficient and insensitive. That is the major cause for us. And it is because of some character deficiency in the bureaucracy. And this character deficiency comes from the day of appointment. The process of appointment itself is suspicious. That is the biggest challenge. I don't want to go into detail on this. However, Supreme Court and other courts have given various directions, and the intervention of the Supreme Court in the matter of handling migrant issue by the central and state governments is indeed laudable. Be that as it may, in my view, the government could have done something more to really protect the human rights of the vulnerable section of the society by walking an extra mile. The central government could have provided monthly allowance of at least rupees 5,000 per worker per month, which would have minimized the agony. As per one official survey, there were about 2 crore migrant workers scattered all over India before the lockdown. The step would have costed the exchequer a sum of rupees 10,000 crores per month, which could have been easily mobilized by imposing wealth tax on the super rich. As per another survey, in India, there are about 1 crore high net worth individuals whose net worth is more than 10 crores. Just 1% of wealth tax would fetch a sum of rupees 1 lakh crore of revenue to the central government, which can be utilized to provide basic needs of the vulnerable section. This is the quality of intervention which is the need of the hour. It is not only the duty of the government to safeguard the vulnerable, but it is also a corresponding obligation of the haves to support the have-nots. And at this juncture, I would like to say, even the super rich advocates didn't come forward to contribute to the COVID fund. We just have to understand the circumstances and the selfish nature of human being, and especially those who are rich and well-being, those who are rich and who are getting regularly, whether they are practicing or not practicing, they are getting sufficient funds. See, it is the duty of every person to take care of the needy persons. If I am an advocate, I have 5 juniors, it is my duty to take care of my juniors, whether I earn or I don't earn, because I have to take out from my savings. It is my duty. I am not doing charity or any service to anybody else. I am doing service to myself. Now, may I request the organizers to formally place the deliberations of this workshop before the central government for appropriate action so that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by United Nations is followed in letter and spirit. Before concluding, as President of University Law College Alumni Association, I would like to compliment the faculty of University Law College for having organized this international workshop, which has provided a very good platform for deliberations on the subject of high relevance. I would like to formally extend the support of the Alumni Association and encouragement for more and more academic events such as this to be conducted in future. I would like to thank the principal, Professor Sudesh Nadgowda, Professor Sudesh, Professor Dashrath, and Professor Satish Gowda for giving me this opportunity. I would like to conclude with a strong hope that we emerge victorious in the fight against the pandemic and to have a program of this magnitude in the conventional way in coming days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your views on policy implementation during the pandemic situation and measures to ensure that human rights prevail at the end of the day. Now, I would like to introduce and invite Professor Dr. Suresh V. Nadagowda, Principal, University Law College, Bangalore University, and the Director of this International Virtual Workshop. We thank you so much, sir, for your support and guidance throughout the planning and execution of this event. I kindly request you to render the presidential address.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. In fact, I take this opportunity to thank former Principal and Dean of Legal Education, Professor Coutinho sir, for gracing this occasion also, as he was one of the guests even in the inaugural program. Respected guests and speakers in this session, in fact, I don't want to take much of the time because our participants have been watching the proceedings since 4 o'clock. It's already more than 3 hours. But being a president of this valedictory session, I would like to make my remarks very briefly, taking very less time. Madam Danixia has given us a very clear picture of the impact of COVID-19 in US, as he has stated that it has affected more than 3 million people and already taken life of more than 1 lakh people. And she has also given us a information that the COVID-19 has affected and paralyzed the life of the people in America. So when the strong country or a developed country like America itself is facing a lot of problems, as he has stated, it has resulted in unemployment, affecting the educational activities, it has increased poverty, it has affected the people of different races. So we at India, by taking or drawing example of America, will have to be more cautious to contain and deal with this COVID-19, as it has been expressed by Sri Ponnanna, our illustrious alumni, that government has failed in taking effective measures both at the central and state level to contain and deal with this COVID-19 situation. And in fact, Sudhir Krishnaswamy has rightly pointed out that it is a high time for our courts to adopt technology to deal with the legal issues more particularly in such situations wherein when the government machinery has failed to protect the interests of the people and uphold their rights, there is no other alternative than to approach the courts. If the courts are closed, as it has been stated by Ponnanna, for 2 to 3 weeks, then where the public should go? Then what about the enforcement of their rights? So, taking into consideration all these aspects, as stated by Sudhir Krishnaswamy, so we need to adopt technology, though the technology has been adopted to some extent at High Court and Supreme Court level, it has not percolated down to the lower courts. So almost since 3 months, none of the lower courts are functioning, and thereby it has affected the interest of common people. So the people who approach the higher courts like High Court and Supreme Court are very, very less, very minimum. Then what about the rights of the people who approach the lower courts for enforcement? So that's why now it is need of the hour that we should go for adoption of technology, as Sudhir Krishnaswamy has stated that we should go for teleconferencing and all that, and also adoption of effective case management system. So even I too practiced for a few years before joining as a faculty. So I know how unsystematic and impractical is our court management system. So we place so many cases on the board, but hardly we take up three to four cases. So we can find out the ways and means to overcome these situations. So as even Ponnanna has expressed his concern about the ineffective functioning of the administrative authorities, as it has been even pointed out by Sri Gautam Chand, who is a president of our alumni association, that our administrators, administrative agencies must be more sensitive to deal with the issues. And one more thing, in fact, even many have expressed their concern in the yesterday's discussions and discourses. And as it has been also pointed out by Sri Ponnanna, that the rights commissions, human rights commissions, both at the central level as well as at the state level, and even the constitutional authorities have utterly failed to rise up to the situation. So we need that those authorities shall have to discharge their duties. That is the reason why they have been appointed with all the facilities. Okay, so in this connection, even all the discussions and deliberations which we held in these 2 days, so everyone have expressed about the concern of protection of the human rights. So with these few remarks, I take this opportunity to thank all the panelists for expressing their views very effectively. And in fact, I would like to place on record that we have a very illustrious and positive-minded and very supporting alumni association who are ready to help out to the institution to any extent. ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ತನು ಮನ ಧನದಿಂದ ಅವರು ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಡಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. We are also here on this side are ready to take all your support, cooperation, guidance, because we want to make ULC as one of the top institutions, not only in the country, in the whole world. And for that, I have a lot of support and assurance by all my colleagues, senior colleague, Professor Sudesh, Professor Dashrath, and all my other colleagues, Satish Gowda, Chandrakanti, Jyoti Vishwanath, and all of them. So let us, and this is only a beginning, because we have so many things on the agenda, as we have already discussed with my colleagues, that we are planning to introduce series of special lectures, mostly involving all our alumni and also others who are experts and excelled in their own field. So with these few remarks, I would like to thank the guests who have accepted graciously accepted our invitation and presented their views in the inaugural session, and all the resource persons. We have a good galaxy of eminent experts in different sessions who have made an excellent presentation. And in fact, as it has been already expressed by some of our delegates in the beginning of the program, that they have rated these discourses and deliberations very highly. And as per our survey, more than 70% of them have given us excellent remark, and remaining 30% very good. So it means that in terms of our NAC assessment, we have earned A+ grade. And in fact, we are not happy or satisfied with that. We want to get A++. So that is possible. Sir?
Congratulations, sir.
That is no doubt. We'll do it with the support of all our colleagues, alumni, and all at the university. Of course, I want to make a special mention and thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, who is very dynamic, proactive, who is very supporting. And in fact, I have also stated in my inaugural in the inaugural also, that inaugural program also, that in fact he is the source of inspiration for organizing this program in our college. And of course, the success, if at all the participants feel, because the success of the program is to be certified by the participants. As I've already stated, they are very happy. And of course, this has inspired all our faculty and all our students, committed students who have worked day and night. Of course, with the leader, we are under the guidance of all of us, and more particularly our coordinator, dynamic coordinator, Mr. Satish, Professor Dr. Satish Gowda, that we have been able to put up a very good show on this in these 2 days. And in fact, I take this opportunity to thank all my colleagues, all the students, both LLB, LLM, all research scholars, and also all the participants who have attended the program very meticulously. In fact, I was watching the number of participants every now and then, that it never went below 350. Okay, and we were very happy, Sudesh and myself, that just by 10:10 in the morning, 10 we were about to start the program. By 10:10, there were more than 300 participants. So this is the commitment and this is the interest which is shown by our participants. And I'm really overwhelmed, and I thank all of them for attending the program and giving a very patient hearing. And of course, as I've already stated, that the as in fact even suggested by Gautam Chand, we are very much committed to record the details of these proceedings and bring out in the form of a printed book, and we'll submit the report of the outcome of this proceeding, this 2 days workshop, along with recommendations, specific recommendations to both the union as well as state government, so that we can be of some help to bring the attitudinal change and policy change on the part of the government to effectively deal with this COVID situation. So, ladies and gentlemen, then I would like to close my remarks again, thanking you all. And of course, before I close, I would like to announce that because of this overwhelming response and support, unstinted support from all the corners, ULC is set to launch one more international virtual workshop shortly, that is on 21st of this month itself. That will be on the environmental sustainability and human resilience during COVID-19. Dear participants, I request and hope that we will get the same support from all of you and eagerly waiting for all of you to join us on 21st. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful views provided and netting out the plan for the future. I request all the participants to fill out the feedback form, which is shared in the Zoom chat box after the valedictory ceremony in order to receive their participation. Now I request Mr. Jyoti Vishvanath, Senior Assistant Professor, University Law College, Bangalore University, to render the vote of thanks.
Good evening to everybody. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Late good evening to all the esteemed members of the virtual gathering present here. I know, though we are not tired, but you know, our electronic gadgets are very much tired and the data packs are fast draining out. So before we all of our daily data packs are drained out, let me render the vote of thanks. It's time to thank all the hardworking personalities behind the successful conduct and organization of this international virtual workshop on protection of human rights during pandemic on behalf of University Law College and Department of Studies in Law, Bangalore University, Bangalore. To begin with, I would like to thank the dignitaries of the valedictory program who are present with us today. I would thank Professor J. Danixia Cuevas from JD, who is JD Professor, Miami Dade College, USA, for being with us in the early morning. It was morning there in USA. I also thank Professor Dr. Sudhir Krishnaswamy, Vice Chancellor, National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, for being with us and sharing his thoughts. I also thank the guest of honor, Sri A.S. Ponnanna, a senior advocate, High Court of Karnataka, and former Additional Advocate General, for being with us and sharing his thoughts with us. I also thank Sri Gautam Chand, SF, President of University Law College Alumni Association, and he is also a member of the Karnataka State Bar Council of India, for sharing his thoughts with us in the valedictory function. Further, I also thank the workshop director and the president of today's valedictory function, Professor Suresh V. Nadagowda, Principal, University Law College. Friends, Professor Suresh V. Nadagowda has robustly given a magic push to the academic activities, discussions, debates after his comeback from the Karnataka Rural Development and Panchayat Raj University to Bangalore University, planning such a magnificent international workshop with more than 1,500 virtual participants and bringing great speakers on a single platform at such a short notice is really appreciable, and the great credit and the whole credit we can attribute to our principal Suresh V. Nadagowda. Thank you very much, sir. I also thank our workshop co-directors, Professor Dr. V. Sudesh, former principal and Dean, University Law College, and Professor Dr. N. Dashrath, the present chairman, Department of Studies in Law and Dean, Faculty of Law, Bangalore University, Bangalore. Without you, sirs, this international workshop would not have been so successful and lively. Day and night, selflessly, Dr. V. Sudesh and Dr. N. Dashrath have been with us and guided us throughout this seminar. I would be failing in my endeavors if I do not thank the workshop coordinator, Dr. N. Satish Gowda, Senior Assistant Professor, University Law College, Bangalore University, Bangalore. It is Dr. N. Satish Gowda who has worked day in and day out and burned the midnight oil in planning, chalking out, weaving together the threads of the international workshop. Dr. N. Satish Gowda has made great efforts, and a lot of thoughtful planning has gone in making this workshop a very successful one. Thank you, Dr. N. Satish Gowda. I also thank all the great speakers and resource persons who have taken out time out of their busy schedules, and they have shared their practical and valuable thoughts pertaining to human rights protection during the stressful COVID pandemic times. Our speakers have been drawn from the highly applaudable legal circles, nationally and internationally. I thank all of them, though each one of them deserve a separate personal thank, but it is not possible. So I'm thanking all of them in one go. And I would also like to thank Professor Ramakrishna sir, National Law School of India University, Professor C.S. Patil sir, Karnataka State Law University, Hubli, Professor Puneet, JNU, Professor Baswarath sir, Department of Law, Mysore University, and professors from all the different departments of Bangalore University who have been with us throughout this workshop. I would also like to thank the deans, principals, heads of departments, vice chancellors representing different institutions, universities, colleges throughout the country and abroad who were with us for the workshop. I also thank our Bangalore University authorities, Professor Dr. K.R. Venugopal, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Bangalore University, Bangalore, for his valuable support for the whole workshop. I also thank the other university authorities, syndicate members who supported us throughout. I also thank our student friends led by Naman Wankdari, who along with other LLB students have worked day in and day out and have successfully supported the faculty in the organization of this workshop. They require a very loud round of applause. I think virtually it's not possible, but still.
Ma'am, a small amendment with your permission. It was not my effort, but credits go to Satyajit MS, Niharika D. Souza, Ajit GG, and Jinay. They worked really hard.
Whole team of students organizing committee.
Whole team led by
kind of you to say, but no, ma'am, they did all the work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. I also
under the leadership of Naman.
Yes. I also thank my colleagues, Dr. L. Chandrakanti, Senior Professor, and Madam Shivkumari, Librarian, for being with us throughout this workshop. I also thank all the LLB and LLM students for being a very good support in the organization of this program. I thank all the teaching and non-teaching staff and the members of the press and media. And as our principal has already told that we are soon going to host another international seminar on 21st of July. So I will not say goodbye. I will only say goodbye and good night. Have a nice day. And please join with us for all our future coming academic endeavors. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank to all of you.
Professor Nadgodar.
Sir.
Professor Krishna Swami has been very magnanimous in offering a coordination between the two institutions.
Yeah.
I think you should thank him and take it forward.
I take this opportunity to thank him wholeheartedly. In fact, I forgotten to mention that. And in fact, just on the lighter way, his wife is our alumni. She must have influenced him to come here to ULC.
She was my student. You can thank her also.
Yeah. So we'll grab this opportunity and we'll see that a proper collaboration and cooperation is made between two institutions for the development of ULC.
Punanna is reminded of his college days. Thank you. Thank you one and all. Goodbye and good night. Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you so much. So nice having you.
A big namaste.
Thank you.
And all our colleagues,
thank you very much.
All their wholehearted support, all our students, though I have not mentioned their names, under the leadership of Naman, all our student organizing team has worked very hard. So they have taken care of everything. In that way, we have been very self-reliant in organizing this program. We have not gone to any service providers, including designing. Everything has been taken care of our team. So I am really grateful to all of them, all our students.
Guys, please turn on your videos, no? Niharika,
the certificates reach them early.
That will be done. And also proceedings have to be compiled and it is to be distributed at least to all our resource persons so that we can take their opinion whether they have been recorded properly. We will compile and submit it to the government. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Satish Gowda.
Thanks to
all the congratulations for all the success under your coordinationship.
Thank you, sir.
And I wish the same thing to happen even to Chandrakanti and also Dr. Jyoti Vishwanath.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Teamwork, sir. Teamwork. We all collectively work for the betterment of institution. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, Naman.
Sir.
Few minutes. Can we go to breakout room?
Sure,
Only
absolutely.
faculty and our organizing students, organizing committee. Yeah.
Sure, sir. That can be arranged.
Thank you, Professor Sudeep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sudhir Krishna Swami, sir. Thank you, sir.
We are getting a lot of messages on the personal chats. Thank you very much, all the ladies and gentlemen, sirs and ma'ams, for being phenomenal throughout. Your patience, your quest for intellectuality that University Law College offered has been really commendable. Thank you very much.
Can you read out some of the observations?
Absolutely. We all have a great future. May God bless ULC. Very nice session organized by you all. Thank you very much.
Good.
I have, after a very long time, I'm seeing a session like this. Same person also goes on to say that I have never seen a virtual session which has happened with so much of consistency.
Okay, good.
These are the personal messages I received, sir. And then we have one foreign delegate who said that
sessions went on with a lot of consistency. It is all because of you all students.
And then we have one person by name Brian, who is from United States of America, who says that post pandemic, we are looking forward to have more sessions like this.
Okay.
He's from the United States of America.
A small advice to all of you students, kindly compile all these opinions of the students, our participants.
Thank you very much for this informative session. Thank you, Mr. Madan Kumar. Vinay, can you please create the breakout room quickly for us and for all of us with the faculty?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm doing so.